All right, and we're live. I am back with Aidan Follestad, and we're redoing the podcast. We had an amazing, great conversation. Sometimes you talk to some people that you reach out to, and you're like, yo, let's have a great conversation. And you get in, and you're like, yeah, this is going to be super professional. We're going to have a good time, but we're going to have fun, not too much fun. And then Aidan was like, yeah, we're going to dial that shit up to 10. No, it was good. It was a good time. We talked about code. Obviously, we talked about life, but more importantly, kind of dove into a lot of important topics, and we're going to dive back into those. We were talking before the show started about I don't know if this is like bad. I shouldn't do this, but I don't know. But maybe it's free advertising. Is probably what it is. Product placement, I guess. But Killcliff, their CBD drinks. And I was saying to Aidan before the show, like I had to find something before to like help wind my brain down, because it's hard to take a lesser. I don't know how to explain. This is not coming out right at all. But those people that struggle with what I struggle with, and maybe Aidan, you do, I don't know, but I have a lot of things going in my mind, like even at work, like when I'm trying to process stuff, and I can't. I hate. That's why I hate sometimes text like communication, because it's too slow, and you can't get like what you're trying to get across. Like half the time, I'll get up and go walk to my manager's office because I can't stand like messaging him if I know he's available to talk. So I'll just go over there and talk to him. But yeah, this CBD stuff, man, it really helps. It winds me down, helps me think better. It clears my head.
Yeah, I'm actually on anxiety meds, so I have general anxiety disorder that I was diagnosed with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years back, I think. But I used to have panic attacks when I was a kid and such, so I guess it was always there. I just didn't really know why it was happening.
Never mind.
So yeah, there's that.
Don't assume.
Yeah, and it's legal here, so of course I like to use cannabis vaporizers too. That definitely winds me down when I'm trying to go to sleep, and it makes my appetite really great.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, is going into some of the Twitter sphere. It was really awesome because I was like scrolling, like, let's find some cool stuff the guy's been up to, and let's see if we can talk about it. And I have a screenshot from one of your tweets. It's like, seriously, some caffeine plus THC is the best state of mind.
Yeah. So yeah, there's something about it. Like, so obviously there's different types of cannabis. There's indica and sativa and hybrids. And sativa, they usually say to take during the day, indica at night. I'm really just an indica all day kind of guy. So that tends to make you a little bit sleepy, which is like the stereotype of a stoner.
Okay.
But when you consume caffeine at the same time, they counteract each other. So you get all the benefits of the plants without the laziness. And there's just this euphoric feeling. I don't even know how to really describe it, but it's great. Makes you actually really motivated to get work done too.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I need too sometimes, because I mean, the reality, man, the battle on a daily basis, which a lot of people, and I want to be clear about what I meant earlier is I haven't been able to have conversations with people that struggle with what I struggle with. And to be honest with you, I haven't been clinically diagnosed with shit. I just know I freak out internally, and I never knew what it was. I thought it was just me being a dumbass and not realizing like that the rest of the world doesn't have to deal with my shit.
Right.
That's probably a sad note, but I didn't know what it was, and maybe that is. I don't know. I got to talk to a doctor, but yeah, I've had like anxiety in the form where things get to a point where I feel so frustrated to where I either get angry, or I get just like cars. I tell people when I try to explain it, cars crash in my brain. That's basically how I try to explain it. And when it comes to medication, I was on Ritalin when I was a kid, and bro, I was a zombie. I hated it. My mom hated it.
Not yourself at all, right?
Yeah, it was garbage. I never tried anything after that. I tried to find outlets, like physical things were kind of my deal. That's why I hate working where I'm working. I appreciate the company. It's way better than companies I worked at in the past, but obviously I'm trying to get out of IT, but I need to be up and moving. So, but the state of mind, man, let's talk about that. Like, it's interesting you bring that up in not only in your tweet, but kind of with what you're talking about. Like, it's, Steve Jobs experienced that. Other people in his stature and his experience, like, kind of did the same thing where, like, they go on these trips, they have these different states of mind, and they have these epiphanies, and new things happen, inventions, companies,
Right.
It's crazy, man. So, I mean, have you only experienced like just THC? Have you done like mushrooms? Have you looked at other things that can alter your state of mind?
I haven't yet. I've heard a lot of bad stories from adults in my family that I don't want to name specifically, but I've heard, there's so many stories of bad trips with LSD and mushrooms and those more intense psychedelics. But I guess Oregon would be the place to go these days to do that.
They're making everything legal.
Right. But yeah, it's mainly been THC. Alcohol, I like to drink wine and stuff on occasion, which we talked about last time, but there's some alcoholism in my family, and I've just never really been that big of a fan of getting drunk. I like the buzz, but the drunk, I don't really like the drunk. So yeah, it's always been a challenge, I guess. There's even been episodes where something's happened and I continue to throw up all my food, like I couldn't keep food down. So it gets pretty intense.
With alcohol?
Back to the anxiety point.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
I do that too, by the way, where like you start changing to a contextual point and you forget to tell people the context, but you're continuing on like you said it. I've done that. Yeah, but that's crazy, man. Yeah, I haven't experienced that, but on the drinking side of things, I was gonna make a joke about the wine. Like, I texted you that photo.
Yeah.
I was like, my wife and I were buying wine for a get together. Like, hey, bitch drinks.
Right. It's the best. So that fruity wine is delicious.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. Yeah. So it's okay, guys. All right.
Yeah.
You have permission. You can embrace the bitch drinks.
It doesn't have to be the craft beer that you get from like a local brewery or whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, people have like different digestion issues and stuff like that, so they can like either have wine or alcohol or like beer, different types of beers, too hoppy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, for me, the wife and I, like, at least when we experimented with like different kinds, because like I told her, I was like, hey, because we were dating before she was 21, and together. Actually, we're married when she turned 21, and that was funny because I told her, I said, "Hey, take your time, like don't overdo it." I made her a big, huge thing with like 5 shots in it. I said, "Just take your time." It was like a margarita or something like that. And I said, "Take your time, just sip it, enjoy it." She downed that thing, and then I told her, I said, "Listen, just get me when you want to get more. I'll do it for you because you're going to overdo it." What does she do? Like, that meme or that gif of that lady is like, just one shot of vodka, glug 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 glug. That's what she did, and we were drinking Captain Morgan, and so she just like boom. I told her at the beginning of this whole event, I was like, I'm gonna be holding your hair by the end of the night if you don't listen. Like, take your time, take it slow. Like, that's why we're doing it at home, like safe place to pass out.
Is that how it ended up?
Yeah. Well, I was holding her hair, bro. She was throwing up.
That's the worst. But luckily, I've never had to deal with that before. I've always avoided that scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's important for people to understand. Like, it's good to go past your limits to understand where they are.
True.
And otherwise, people, like, if you kind of know where you're at and you're comfortable, kind of like your boundaries are, and you've never exceeded them, to each their own. But I do think it's important for people to experiment and figure out things, just so that way it's not so much to harm oneself. Obviously, don't do that. Drink responsibly. Don't be an idiot. But also with any, drug, so to speak, right? Like, right. You want to understand how it affects you, because literally everybody's affected differently. So
it's good to be around people you trust and well, like family. That's always the best way to do it for the first time.
Yeah, the house that I would party a lot in Phoenix when I lived out there. It was a friend's house that I could trust passing out at, and the one night I felt I couldn't. It was a weird experience, man. It was the first time I didn't realize I need to tread carefully on how I express this. So I have never actually been in a situation because I was already buzzed. I was already like a couple drinks in. Like I was the fun guy, you know.
Right.
And there was this guy, and he played for the other team, but I didn't know that. And it was after my moped accident. Like I had really bad, like that was when I got thrown like I don't know if did I tell you this last time?
Mm-mm.
So I got a moped accident, and as anybody who drives a two-wheeled vehicle, you have to always assume that everybody's out to get you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Right. And what I mean by that is like, you're just assuming that everybody in front of you, and, you know, not much you can do about behind you, but, you know, and so like, as I was pulling up to a stoplight, I was making sure I was leaving enough room for people to do whatever the hell they wanted to do. And I thought I was doing enough, but it wasn't. And this lady was coming, I was right here, and she was, no, in your perspective. Yeah. So she was here, I was here, I was going, and then I started slowing down, and she just started coming in my way, in my lane. And then I literally just knocked on her window, freaked her out apparently. So she goes, ah, and goes, and comes right back at me. As she comes back at me, we kind of do this deal. We're mind you, we're slowing down to a stoplight, so you know we're not going that fast. But I'm like gonna fall under her wheel, so I have to like kick off of her vehicle, and somehow I fractured my ankle. But her back end hit my moped and knocked me over, and I did a couple of somersaults or whatever. Tumbles, and then my head slammed on a concrete curb.
You're wearing a helmet, right?
Helmet. The whole good. Spent a couple $100 on protective gear, thank God.
Yeah.
And
I've had, I think, 3 motorcycles in my life. I'm about to get another one pretty soon too. But I've luckily only had one close call similar to that. I was going down the highway, like a 5-lane highway in near San Francisco. And for whatever reason, I was looking out towards the water to the left. There was like a pretty view of the bay. And I didn't expect anything to happen in front of me. So I looked over for like a split second. The car in front of me slammed on their brakes because the car in front of them slammed on the brakes. So I then slammed on the brakes, and I slid all the way in. My bike fell on the left side, and I pretty much slid into the car myself. Ouch. Luckily, I was wearing protective gear as well. So luckily, I was fine. Motorcycle was totaled.
But moral of the story: don't skimp on the helmet because you think you're a cool dude.
Yep. There's a motto: all gear, all the time. AGATS, right? Yeah. AGATT. All the gear, all the time. All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this cool thing that we do as bikers, where like you'll pass somebody and you'll do something like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That means I'm surprised you know that. Actually, that means 2 wheels on the ground. So it's like it's wishing them well, I guess, on the rest of the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I just loved it. And that's kind of why I want to get another motorcycle again, because I was like, man, it's just like you kind of get into a community. Exactly. I know some friends of mine who are actually a part of a biker club. It's BACA. You ever heard of BACA? Bikers Against Child Abuse.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I can talk about it because I'm not a part of it, but yeah, it's awesome. I mean, he's super busy all the time. Obviously, I mean, it's important. Every time I'm like, "Hey, man, you want to hang out?" He's like, "Sorry, man, I got a bucket thing this weekend. We're going to see a kid." And I was like,
"Oh, that's awesome.
Cool." Like, I don't know. It sucks because you can't see your friend, but you know, at the same time, it's cool.
Yeah, doing important stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. He's actually up for a vote to be a board member, and if he is, he's gonna like, because we work at the same place, but it's funny, his last name is Knight, like KN Knight, and he's on the night shift, so it's funny. And but if he gets voted into the board for this chapter, he's gonna move to days so he can do the meetings. But that'll be kind of cool because you know we can hang out and stuff. I thought it was funny. I was like, bro, you brought me to this new company, and all of a sudden you just dipped out. He was days when he was training, and then all of a sudden they changed him to nights, and so that's the joke. But back to this Twitter stuff, man, because we're gonna go into a deep hole on that one.
Oh yeah.
But dude, so let's talk about this. Okay, so this is actually a pretty good topic to discuss, because it's kind of like, it's not so much about what people decide to do, but it's more so about like, and as you said, rightly so, you've worked really hard and studied to get to where you're at. And so right now, all you're doing is you're not like it's a Tesla. It's not, I'm not saying you wouldn't, if you had the money, not buy a Lamborghini, but it's like a Tesla is not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. People buy SUVs that are more expensive than Tesla.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think Ford F-150s are more expensive than the base model Tesla Model 3.
Right. And so I think what we need to kind of frame up here is just because somebody showing the fruits of their labor over time, it doesn't mean. And also, I think the problem with the internet is people see that and they automatically want to respond without knowing the background.
Right.
And they just assume, and it seemed like this individual did. So let's talk about that, man. Like, how does that make you feel? Because like, I see kind of my, and I'm just going to get a little real here before I started getting to know you as a buddy. Yeah. But like, before I knew you as a person, it just seemed like you were enjoying yourself. Like, your photo looks like you're laying in a blanket or a pool or something. I don't even know what that profile photo. Oh yeah. You're at the beach.
That's on the beach in LA. Yeah.
Yeah. So you I don't know. You seem like a guy, looks like he's having a good time, and and you really enjoy your family, your friends, your girlfriend, and
yeah,
you know what I mean? So I don't know. It just seems like somebody who likes to enjoy life, and that's pretty much it, man. You know, so tell me how this made you feel. Like where's your head at with that?
Yeah, it was kind of a shock, I guess, up front. Sometimes I'm careful with that kind of stuff because, you know, people might see it in a different way because of cultural differences. I think they were from India, so they may not have come up in the best place in the world. I don't know. As I said in the tweet, I came from a pretty poor family when I was younger. My whole family really has raised themselves up a lot. My parents definitely were not wealthy at all when I was a kid, and they did everything they could to make me turn out well. And now we're all in very, very good places in our lives. So yeah, I think I have a lot of pride in where I am and what I've done to get myself to where I am. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think you should ever be not or afraid to kind of show it. I think for me, it's tough because it's like, hey, look at this. This looks great. And it's like, it's always that battle of, am I posting this because I'm enjoying it, or am I posting it because I want to flaunt it? And I'm not saying that's what you did, but I'm just saying, like, that is the struggle we all have. Mm-hmm. Like, the minute I got my first car, I posted a bunch of stuff about it because it was my first car that I owned. And by the way, I've paid for all of it myself. Mm-hmm. And you know, even if you use student loans or grants or whatever, not grants, but like the student loans, you still have to pay those back plus interest. Right. So either way, I mean, you're still paying for it. So I had 2 cash cars. One I got T-boned in. Holy shit. It's weird when you see yourself get T-boned.
Yeah.
Weirdest thing in the world. I was kind of expecting to like just pass out some point. Mm. And the weirdest thing is the firefighters and the paramedics that kind of came to like see if I'm good, because they don't know, and they probably seen people get T-boned and they're like, I don't know, severed spines or whatever.
Right.
I'm not trying to joke about it, but you get my point. I'm just like, I don't know. They're just taking it real serious, and they come in like, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right, buddy. It's gonna be, just keep talking to me, man. I'm like, I think I'm good. But it's weird because the door, like, it slammed and was pinned up against my leg, but it was also in my lap.
Wow.
And I didn't get anything from it except for laying in a bed in the hallway because I didn't have good insurance. And so I was sitting there with glass in my ass.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, they literally, I guess Yeah, because they were going to take me to this like more expensive hospital. Somebody told me, don't go to that hospital. It's way too expensive. And I was like, and I guess I had a choice. So I was like, cool, take me there. And apparently it was less expensive. And it turned out there was nothing wrong with me except for the glass in my ass that I had to sit in because I couldn't, it was difficult for me to kind of, because I was sore. And it was difficult for me to kind of get it out of my ass. And plus,
ouch,
a very hard place to get glass out of your ass. I mean, it's just, I don't know. You can't, I'm not that like or stretchy. What's the word? Anyways, I'm not that. And it sucked. But yeah, being T-boned is weird. Obviously, if you survive it and nothing happens to you.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really fortunate to only have glass in your ass.
There's a funny running joke in my family because I've been in a bunch of car accidents. I was in a SUV accident with a semi when I was in elementary school. Oh yeah. That semi, it was one of those things where the driver wasn't paying attention, and like it wasn't entirely her fault, but the semi was here, she was here, semi was turning. She took her eyes off the road for just a second, and then crashed into the back of his trailer as he was turning, and it slammed us into a telephone pole with live wires.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in the front seat. What's up?
Was everyone fine after that?
So one chick bolted at the wrong time. She dipped out the vehicle, and I don't know how, but she broke her collarbone.
Oh.
And then everybody else was fine because it was another situation where you're like slowing down. And I had like a lot of bruises, and I think it's just bruises and stuff like that on my shins because it was a SUV. So it was like, they call it a Septran or whatever the heck. It's them small vehicles they use in smaller cities to bus kids to school. And so I made it out of there, but it was funny because because of that, my mom got her first cell phone.
Oh, wow.
Because they couldn't reach her. She was at work.
Right.
So I think she got like a voicemail or something like that, or and then she freaked out and went and got a cell phone. So there's that. Started to think of I think it was that one. I got into I got T-boned, and then there was the motorcycle or the moped. I call it a motorcycle because I want to sound cooler. So, but anyways, and so the running joke is I'm gonna get into an airplane accident. I'm gonna walk away with a broken arm, and that's it.
Yeah. I think some band member like Tommy Lee, or I think that exact thing happened to someone recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably Tommy Lee, the drummer from Blink-182.
That's dope, man. Glad he's okay.
Travis Barker, not Tommy Lee.
Hey, man, plane crashes are a doozy.
Yeah.
So you bought a PS5, you got a 70-inch TV. How dare you?
Yeah, I got pretty lucky there. Obviously, because I think they put the stock for the PS5 back up again yesterday, and it's already sold out again. So it's
nice. Yeah, I literally heard that the CEO of was it PlayStation? I think it was PlayStation.
Yeah,
was like, yeah, we're trying to get more stock. It's gone.
Yeah, the supply chain just can't handle all the demand. It's insane.
It's one of the first consoles in a long time that's been so fast. Like literally loading is crazy, and it's just probably really fun to play.
Oh yeah, it's almost instantaneous to load.
Yeah.
Games, yeah, like Assassin's Creed, it takes like maybe 3 seconds to fast travel somewhere. It's pretty great.
Wow. Because the biggest thing about games is loading time, but it's trying to load the environment, so it's crazy. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about kind of a small part of that where like you bought some things, somebody's bitching at you for it. But let's talk about that. So we don't have to talk about where you work. Just to be clear out loud, Aidan.
For context, I'm not allowed to talk about too much about what I do in my role, but I can say that I work for Square as a senior Android engineer, but not supposed to talk too much about the details.
That's not so much for the audience as it is for us. Me not to ask questions and you not to talk about it.
Right.
Because we did a lot in the last episode that we recorded. So, I mean, you kind of were pretty passionate in this tweet. Like, you dedicated your life to your work. You were teaching yourself your craft at 12. That part I don't think I remember talking to you about. Tell me all about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was a super big gamer when I was little. I had PS2, Xbox 360, like a bunch of consoles, and I was. My parents actually got kind of angry because I would play too many video games. But I eventually wanted to actually get into game development, so I got a book on C++ and started to teach myself low-level machine programming, which was very difficult at the time. But that eventually went to like Windows PC desktop apps with C# and then eventually Android. But I have no college degree, so I'm fully self-taught, and I've literally gotten to where I am with internet and books for different languages. So I'm pretty proud of that. I did go to college for 1 year, but I think I mentioned this last time. It wasn't really worth my time, and because it's so expensive, and you really can get a lot of that education outside of a university. So
you can, and I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from I spent 2 years. No, I think technically I spent a total of 4 years. I should technically have a bachelor's, but you know how courses and all that shit, it doesn't all transfer over. Anyways,
right.
So I did a lot of general studies for the first 2 years that never worked together for me to get like a total associate's. But then the last 2 years I did DeVry University online, and at first it was an electronics engineering degree. And then it was too much because there was a lot to learn. It's one of those things you have to spend time studying, at least for the way that I learn.
Right.
And I felt bad for my professor. I had him up at like midnight asking questions. So I switched it to network systems administration because I had the impression that I was going to because the thing that always bothered me, I know I have a lot of not downfalls, but a lot of things that, as anybody, you can get better at. Like, you're not perfect at, like you could grow as a person. And so the degree was really for the company I was working at that eventually laid me off. But my struggle is I really believe that there needs to be, to the point of why school isn't as good as it used to be. There's no apprenticeships. There's no way for you to work with somebody and study and learn. I mean, I'm 100%. I agree with Gary Vee in the aspect that you got to work sometimes for free. And it's sort of like an internship, right? I know some internships are paid, but if there was a path for me to take for programming that I could clearly see, and I could go and sign up for this thing and intern for somebody, and I would love to do that, and I would do it for free. I would find whatever way I could if it meant that if I spent a couple of years just doing whatever I had to learn the craft and study under the people that already know, because this is the best thing. You're studying from people who already know. And so you're learning a lot. And then you could, progress from there and become a software engineer. But there wasn't really something like that I could find, except for all the online code camps and all that kind of stuff, which are great. But for me, I've always felt like online courses can only go so far.
Indeed.
And the struggle that I'm having in my day job is, and I noticed this today, where there could be a lot of documentation that walks you through it, but if it's not made in a way that and this is something I would love to study later on, is there's different ways to learn. There's visual, there's auditory, there's kinesthetic, like hands-on type of thing, right?
Right.
And so I just feel like if documentation is not set in that way and it's only text, maybe some photos, but if it's not very cut and dry and it has a lot of missing pieces, I start to my mind. I mean, kind of like we talked about, where I start to get a little frustrated, and then if I get completely stuck, and then people are like, "Well, what did you read the thing?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna get frustrated as all hell," because it's like people think that you're not trying to do your best, but you are, and so that's kind of why I've battled between doing a job, doing, regular jobs versus, engineering jobs. Like engineering, I know is way different because the environment's different. You know what I mean? I mean, you're still working with documentation, but you have the ability to go and have a conversation with somebody like, "Hey, I don't understand this.
Right.
Like, can you help me out?"
Right.
And so I've always enjoyed that about engineering, because when I was at the company that laid me off, I was hoping to do the mentorship with one of the head engineers over all of infrastructure, right? So that I ran cable, I drilled holes to get cables outside for outdoor WAPs, and like I did all of that, switch. I did port security. I did all this stuff, VLANs, the whole 9 yards. Basically, managed switch environment, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff is a lot of fun for me because I'm using my hands, like I'm doing stuff, I'm typing too, like I'm coding it in a way with scripts and stuff like that. So like it was a mix of physical and software. So that's why I really enjoy the like robots and like Arduinos and stuff like that, in addition to coding, because it's a mix of hardware and software.
Yeah, with apprenticeships too, I feel like there needs to be a lot more. There needs to be more programs for that sort of thing, like to get kids into robotics or to get kids into programming. Like, there's only so much that high school classes teach. That I went through a few high school classes just to get the credits, and they really weren't that challenging for anyone. And I feel like there needs to be something outside of going to college for programming where you can actually get some hands-on experience with other people to learn how to actually program. So yeah, like you said, online courses aren't really enough to learn in a timely manner.
Yeah, I mean, because it reaches people differently, and it's why there's an importance of how you present it, right? So online courses, they only go so far unless the people that are making them realize that you got to stop thinking in a way that you're building the content for one type of a learner,
right?
And that's something that, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all this and saying like I'm an expert, but I acknowledge and understand that these are the reasons why I have issues in understanding this stuff. Like even actually, and I'm going to get a little bit transparent here with Project Guardian. Like I found myself really stepping into a place where I almost had a breakdown because I was like, this seems so minor, but like I'm working with two people who know code. And I don't work in a dev shop, but I've worked on my own app. And so it's like this weird space where I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to start with. And so that started freaking me out. And I was like, oh, well, and I started talking to Liam and I was like, well, I think we should have Aidan like lead the Android effort because he has more experience. And, Liam was, saying, oh, well, I don't know if like right now that makes any sense for anybody to do anything, any kind of structure, because we're just trying to like figure out the MVP and all this other stuff. And I think it was a scapegoat more than anything, because I was like, well, if I can follow somebody, maybe that'd be better for me. And that's just because I need structure. And so that's kind of where that comes from. And, I guess that kind of helps me understand a little bit more of, man, that's crazy. I never associated myself with having anxiety. So I'm having a little bit of an epiphany of like, holy shit, I didn't realize that's what it was. Because you have like these, I'm talking about like these mini attacks, like not attacks, but like these mini little freakouts where you're like, but I've mashed it for so long,
right?
That I've gotten used to like just acknowledging that I can't do shit because I have to be a productive human being in this society.
That's totally how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Really? Wow, man.
Do you ever like? I find there's this weird example I have. Like, if I'm going to sleep and I notice that my heart is beating, I'll focus on my heartbeat, and the fact that I'm focusing on my heartbeat will make my heartbeat beat faster. And it's like this infinite loop where my heart beats and I think about it, and then it beats faster, and then I'm thinking about the fact that it's beating faster, and it like, I don't know, it's really weird.
Well, for me, when I'm trying to sleep, I can't. It depends. Like if I had a long day and there's a lot of physical activity, then it's kind of easier for me to go to sleep. But minus the physical activity, I find myself trying to accomplish, and if I don't feel accomplished, then that's even more of an issue. So like I have to watch stuff to drown my focus, and otherwise, if my brain is left to wander. Yeah, it's hard to sleep, man.
Yeah, like you can't get your brain to shut up. It's just always thinking about something.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that. But I mean, and just so everybody knows, we're going to be kind of going back and forth as we remember things from the last podcast that we recorded, in addition to trying to come back because tangents are a thing. But so I'm kind of getting from this tweet that you just really kind of passionately enjoyed learning to code, and how that brought, because now that I had the context of what happened with your family, and how, like, I'm assuming you've done similar to what I've done, like, because in my family, I'm the person that's had the means to help when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I've had some times where, like, we have been financially in a rut because we made poor financial decisions, and I'm actually documenting my debt journey on YouTube. If anybody's interested, youtube.com/Wesley Franks. But when you're helping your family and doing what you're doing, and like kind of reaping the fruits of your labor, I can kind of read that through this tweet. It's like there's a lot more to this than you truly understand.
Yeah, I guess I've never really had to directly help my family. We kind of all came up at the same time, really.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it was weird, because I don't really think about it in a way like I'm trying to show off. I just I like sharing things that I'm excited about or I'm proud about. Right. Which is, I guess that's kind of where that tweet came from. Because it was just really a shock.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just there's way more we can go into talking about why that person thought it was okay to do that, but
yeah,
just,
well, I mean, I might get a response tomorrow. I think they were asleep during the day, so they're waking
up.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, that's true. So what's up with this this conspiracy theory tweet? I'm like super curious because the tweet is unavailable. Looks like it got deleted.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't realize that. It was about the Parler social media service. So there was, I don't know if you've heard of that yet.
I've heard of the app, yeah.
Yeah, like it's an alternative to Twitter where a lot of super far rightists were going because they believe that Twitter, a private company, was infringing on their rights too much.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's pretty controversial, but really Twitter it's a private company and they get to make decisions about what's on their platform. So I know a lot of people were going to Parler to get away from that, but Parler ended up doing the exact same thing because people were spreading a lot of misinformation, and to a certain point, conspiracy theories can be cool, but to a certain point, they're dangerous. Like COVID, people don't wear masks because they think it's a hoax, or climate change, they think it's a hoax, and the Earth is gonna not be here at one point. So I don't know, it can get a little bit dangerous to a point.
Yeah, the COVID thing, man, that's crazy because it's affected everybody. But just to be clear, like I do believe it's a thing. I believe it's an issue. But my thing is, I'm trying, and I don't know enough. Obviously, this is my stupid brain trying to make sense of what I don't understand. And I'm like, well, if there's been like flu and other illnesses that have killed the same amount of people that have died, granted, may they rest in peace. The fact that they were lost is, we shouldn't have lost one person, obviously, but I don't understand how we've gotten to this length of what it's gone to, and the amount of destruction that people have gone to, the lengths of it. So let me back up. I don't understand how we can go to the grocery store, but they were having problems with us voting indoors.
Mm.
Like, we can go to the grocery store, but we can't get our hair cut. Or some people can get their hair cut.
Yeah, me today.
No. I'm sorry. That was Nancy Pelosi all the way. That bitch.
Oh, Nancy. Right.
That was so dirty that she did that.
It is pretty.
That was rude. Yeah. No, that wasn't you at all, by the way. I was really trying to do that, Nancy Pelosi. Dude, my biggest thing is when these politicians, man, they've been sitting here and they've been like going about things as usual. We're in a pandemic, and they're like, oh, sorry. Like earlier this year, like, we're going to go on a break. Like, it was right after August, I think. And like, oh, sorry, we can't continue this. We have to go on break. I'm like, we're in a pandemic.
No time for breaks.
How are you going on a month break?
Right.
2, 3. Are you serious?
Right.
Like, really? And it's like, oh, it's in the Constitution. I'm like, listen, look, I'm all for the Constitution. I'm all for the Bill of Rights. I'm all for those things. but Congress literally took a break during a pandemic when we had something really important to decide on. That just didn't make sense to me.
No, not at all.
It didn't make no sense. But okay, so if we don't have that's okay. I thought that was going to be a little cooler than it was.
A little bit.
The tweet. I thought it was going to be some like really cool conspiracy, and the fact that it was deleted. You know.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was deleted already, but yeah, I know we were talking about conspiracy theories last time, and there are definitely some cool ones, but yeah, like there was Pizzagate where people were going to pizza shops because they thought there was like sex slaves in the basement, or like children being kidnapped by Joe Biden and Bill Clinton. Like there's just some ridiculous stuff out there. And QAnon has had a big part of that. I know he's
QAnon.
I know he's starting to go away at the moment because of recent events. But yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings.
Are you talking about a person or a group?
Oh, yeah. I guess I don't know if he was a single entity or if it's like a group, but.
Oh, QAnon is like, yeah. Well, you got me there. I don't know if it's a person. I was under the impression that it was like a group. QAnon.
Right. That's maybe I'm wrong. Likely.
I don't know. But I mean, conspiracies are super fun though, because depending on which ones you're talking about, some of them have a little bit of merit. I don't know. For me, I like to absorb all of them to kind of understand where the tidbits of truth are. At least from my perspective. I can't prove shit, but it's super fun for me to go into like the Hollow Earth shit. And because of how it's connected to like Colonel Byrd, I think the guy's name is like Richard E. Byrd. Let me look this shit up while we're talking about it. But anyways, like when you have things that are connected to really high profile people, it's just crazy. What conspiracies have you looked into that you think are interesting?
It's been a while. I was a lot more into them when I was little, like UFOs and a lot of the stuff with the Aztecs and the pyramids. And I think we actually talked about some of these things in our original podcast as well. But yeah, there are some cool ones about ancient cultures and stuff that I find really interesting. But a lot of the modern ones are the ones I find a little more dangerous.
I can understand where you're coming from. It depending on which one it is. I don't know. Like for example, the Sphinx. I don't know if we've talked about, I can't remember if we did. I think we did.
I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the Sphinx, how it's actually older than the books are saying. And I can tell you right now, it's very plausible for what we have in the books to be completely false, or at least not entirely true, because humans are in charge of that documentation. And as long as they're alive, they're making money from the books. They're making money from the classes and tenure and all that stuff. What doesn't make sense to me, though, is if somebody comes with like real facts that challenges what you have written, why is that such a terrible thing? How come that's not welcomed? I think that's the problem with us not being able to flourish with knowledge and science and things like that, because you have these egotistical professors who, and I know there's a ton of people in academia that are, not egotistical and would welcome new data 100% and would love to, obviously they would peer review it and they would really want to make sure that, it was really thoroughly looked through. But
yeah, that makes me think a little bit of society or culture. I think Greek culture or whatever, the Romans used to think the earth was flat. Some people still do, of course. But when Pythagoras, I think was his name, in Greece, said that he believed that the earth was round, everyone was like, oh no, it's definitely not round. We have all agreed that the earth is flat, and you're totally wrong. And obviously most scientists believe today that the earth is round. So yeah, I guess a lot of scientists have too much pride to admit the fact that their theories may be wrong, even though science, a big component of science is coming up with theories and proving them, and a lot of things later become wrong. Who knows if our laws of physics are actually real? We're recording things based on what we observe and not what we actually technically know as absolute facts.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing about the speed of light, right? We agree that the speed of light is a certain number on a piece of paper because we can, or we from what I understand, there's a video on a YouTube channel called Anyways, I'll get the link later, but just look up the speed of light Versatilium. It's like a YouTube channel, and it talks a lot about cool stuff. But he breaks it down really well on how we've never actually measured the one-way speed of light, only two-way. Well, we agree. It's a weird concept. Basically, we agree that the speed of light is one number on a piece of paper, a certain amount that we say that it is, but we're all agreeing that it's the same thing because we can't actually fully measure the one-way speed of light. So
can we though? I feel like if you put a lamp somewhere and you put some panel elsewhere, you can record how long it takes to go from the lamp to the panel. I don't know.
But the point is the experiments haven't actually been done. And the people, the paper that he uses in that video, they explain that they claim to have only measured the one-way speed of light, but they actually measured the two-way speed of light. So there's a lot of problems in it. And from the video, it talks about how there's time dilation. So if you try to use a clock on both ends, you have to have a way to know that those clocks were synced at the same time. Relativity. Right. And then if you sync them together and then move them apart, you still have that relativity issue, which is our GPS system and the satellites above us.
Right.
And so I'm still actually, now that I think about that, I'm like, how the hell do we even do that? How are we not throwing off cliffs and stuff? Like, that
is amazing.
Crazy how that works. but yeah, so I mean, it's crazy how we agree is the main point why I brought that up, is like we agree all together as a community, the science community, we agree that this is the speed of light. It's nuts how like one person will do a study on something, and because it's either something that nobody's been able to actually continue to study, that it's sort of been like, that's what we're going to go with because that person has a lot of knowledge on stuff. Like, I really don't think the lady that found out that uranium was radioactive, I might be getting the actual element wrong, but the point is like she died literally from, I think that was before they actually shielded uranium and stuff like that. She was the chick that died, but she got a Nobel Prize. I think that's what it was because of her efforts. Like she studied that stuff, and now that's how we know that, hey, if you're near uranium and it's radioactive, you're going to die. Yeah, you're going to die.
There's so many things like that too. Like who found that mushrooms were poisonous, or who ate beef for the first time. All these things, right? The first timers for everything.
Exactly. But it does bring up a good point though. I've always been kind of goes to like, Western medicine and like versus Eastern medicine. And my biggest problem with that is like Western medicine has only been around for a couple hundred years. Everything else has been around for thousands of years.
Right.
So I don't understand how when we try to introduce what grows on this planet into our medicinal practices, how come or why has that been allowed to not be okay? Or rather, they being whoever it is, companies, organizations, governments, whatever, have allowed it to get to a point where some things, like, for example, certain drugs are like completely illegal, like cannabis, for example, in most states still, but it actually helps a lot of people with seizures. I'm not saying the word properly. Seizures?
Seizures, yeah.
I can't talk. But no, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about young kids that actually have epilepsy and stuff like that. Like cannabis really helps them. I think that they use cannabis oil, but I mean, still, I mean, it's medicinal. It really helps people. And so, especially with pain, I've heard a lot of stories with veterans that have come back from combat jobs.
PTSD,
yeah, like it helps a lot.
Yeah, instead people use things like oxycodone when they could just be using something natural. And people are getting addicted to oxycodone far more than they're getting addicted to anything like cannabis. If you can, I'm definitely not addicted. I know some people start to get an addiction with cannabis because it reduces the amount of dopamine that your brain needs to make on its own, because the THC has an effect of making you feel euphoria, and it helps you forget. And there's a lot of stuff it does. But well, that's not really the point though. Yeah, people are using dangerous chemicals that pharmaceutical companies are making over natural remedies that have been proven by other cultures to have.
Right. Well, I mean, benefit. The key point here is like aspirin was from a bark, like,
yeah.
And then did you hear this company that actually was one of the biggest, I think, manufacturers of, I don't know if it's Oxycontin or Oxycontin, but it was a really big pain drug.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically were found guilty of, contributing to the pain drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
What is the terminology? I'm forgetting it right now. It's like, it's the opiate crisis. That's what it is.
Right.
And so they were found to contribute highly to it, where they said that their drugs were not addictive, but they are. So basically they were bankrupt and broken apart, and somehow the government's going to take over. It's really weird what's going to happen with that company, but I just don't understand. Like when you want to talk about the war on drugs, you're literally allowing companies to like continuously sell these things that are highly addictive. And I think what Oregon is doing, what people don't understand, they can make a lot of memes as much as they want, but by legalizing all of the drugs, and obviously I don't know the particulars, but let's just talk about it as if they are. I think it was just heroin and some other things.
Yeah, cocaine and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, but by making them illegal, which people don't understand, by making them legal, guess what that does? That allows for recovery centers to be built. Right. And clean needles, like, hey, listen, like if you want to do better, we're not going to criminalize you anymore.
Right.
We want you to get better. So here's a clean place for you to do so. And let's work with the insurances. Let's work with, the state government. Let's try to make a better environment where, think about it. Like if the entire country were to make all the drugs legal, but in a sense where you have to be 18, you have to be 21, like all these things, like whatever, like those are good ideas. There's arguments to be had about, the age, because 18, I don't know. 18, it's my belief is like if other countries can make alcohol at the age 16, it's culturally different. So that's kind of like why I can understand, but their culture is so different. That's why their age is so much younger, because alcohol is like a part of life. They drink wine, and we were talking about this. Like they'll drink wine for dinner. You know what I mean? Right. It's like it's so ingrained in their culture. So I think when it comes to like drugs and alcohol across the country, number one, I think there needs to be an amendment to alcohol at 21 when you're in the United States military, and here's why. Number one, when I was in there, when I was in at Fort Benning, when I was in for like a short stint. I'm not a veteran, to be clear, but I did enlist, and I got booted out because of my ears, and they suck. And apparently everybody keeps pressing that damn button, and nobody told me some bullshit. They're like, yeah, man, everybody's ears suck. What, you didn't press the button? I'm like, no, you fuckers. Nobody told me that shit. I was so annoyed. I was pissed. Yeah. I was kind of depressed for a while, actually. It's like all I had to do was press some buttons, and it got me through. God dang it.
It should have let you redo it or something.
They did 3 times, but I did not know. Well, they let me, because they tested me a bunch of times because they wanted to be sure. But the fact is like, they got to the point where it's like, well, we have to send you back. You have to get a waiver. I'm like, you guys spent $70,000 on my slot.
Jesus.
And you're going to send me home. That's some beautiful taxpayer money, trash can.
Yeah. Seriously.
You know what I mean? Like, wow. And they could, she goes, yeah, if you were one of my regular soldiers, I just give you hearing aids. I'm like, bitch, I'm already here. Like, just, hook it up. Let's go.
Wow.
But it is what it is. I wouldn't trade it for my life though. Cause right now, I wouldn't have met my wife, and we wouldn't be where we're at now. God knows where I'd be.
Yeah. Probably in the other side of the world.
Yeah, probably, killing some people that need killing, I guess.
Yeah.
Who knows? That's somebody else's war. So
with the legal drugs, I completely agree. Like additionally too, I believe it helps it helps counteract a lot of systemic racism issues, because in a lot of ways the prison system is in itself a form of slavery.
We were talking about this.
Yeah, because a lot of people that are in poverty end up getting in the poverty cycle, and they get into drugs or crime, and they end up in prison, and prison takes away their right to vote. So they have this group of people that like statistically, a lot of African Americans tend to be in lower income areas, especially like here in Oakland. So when they get into this cycle, and they end up in prison and they don't get the right to vote, then they lose the ability to choose the direction of where the country goes, because like obviously they can't vote for president, they can't vote for local political stuff. So in a lot of ways, yeah, it's really in itself a form of racism, or a form of slavery, modern day slavery.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's such a crazy thing to think about, like for-profit prisons. That's another thing where it's like, how has that become a thing? How is that even legal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I found out there's a for-profit prison here in Louisiana, and I'm so confused. I'm like, so the entire system is built like the bail bonds, cash system. It's just all bent on like pushing down poverty, or pushing down, people in poverty, because you can't get out. It's hard. Well, it's really hard to get out because.
Mm-hmm. And with the bonds too, it prevents people that are in poverty from actually from getting bail. And on the other side, there's a lot of rich white people that do get bail because they have millions of dollars to spend on on getting bail. And I was disappointed because California actually had something on the recent in the recent election where we were possibly going to switch away from cash bail to some other bail system, and the voters turned it down, which I was sad about. But
why would they turn it down?
I know there are so many ways that the country could improve, and people just don't vote for it. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's a nice segue to what we're working on.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
So Aidan was gracious enough to become a part of this project that it's like tentatively named Project Guardian. And the goal of it is to essentially, I mean, we kind of came up with this thing that kind of makes sense to me, but it's the terminology is learn, discuss, vote. The app's goal is to help you learn about politicians, elections and races that are going on. In terms of learning, it's like, here's their platform, here's their information, here's what they have on their website, and here's how you can learn about them. Because I don't know politicians' websites. I don't know what that would actually be. I have to go Google them and then try to find. There's a lot of steps.
Mm-hmm.
When you can have a platform that gives you all the information right up front, and you can compare things side by side with issues or statements, all that kind of stuff. It's super important. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine about how they were angry because they couldn't. It wasn't as easy to do research, and the problem is people want to argue. Well, you could just Google it and you could figure it out. And like the problem with that is there's so much thrown at you the minute you start searching. It's like, where can I find information just about the person, and then what they're campaigning on, or what they believe in, or whatever. But the goal is to be non-biased. We understand that's a very hard challenge, but yeah. And so Aidan believes in it, and he believes in the cause, and trying to present, whether you're on the right, left, middle, up, down, whatever. We want to build a place where, to our best efforts, we're able to present you with the information you need to make informed decisions.
Like so what Wikipedia do you, of politicians?
Pretty much. I was thinking like the IMDb.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's an interesting thing to dive into. So what kind of made you, when I first brought it up, like what was your thoughts? I mean, do you talk to anybody about it? Like what is your perspective? And as you continue to contribute, like what do you see this app doing for you, or for your family or friends?
Yeah, so we've talked about this a little. My family tends to be, both my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family, they tend to have a little bit of family members are split, I guess. So a lot of, I've mentioned this before, I'm pretty liberal. I voted for Bernie in the primaries, and I voted for Joe recently. I voted for Clinton back in 2016. I'm very liberal. My parents are pretty liberal too. My mom's side of the family has a lot of very conservative people in it, to the point where a lot of them don't really get along well with the rest of the family. And they and I and other people in my family, we all do tend to get in bubbles on social media where, you only see what Facebook wants you to see. And when you like things, you like posts, you comment on posts, Facebook sees that you like those and it continues to show you things that are similar. So we all tend to not really get the whole picture of what's going on in the country. We get what we already believe in, and we don't have any alternative views to listen to and actually take into account in the way that we think on a daily basis. So I think, getting rid of the bubble that the country is in, or that the two halves of the country are in right now, getting rid of that bubble, those bubbles, is very important, and getting people to talk again is important for preventing the country from really realistically going into another civil war. It almost seems like at this point.
Pretty much. I mean, that's kind of when I thought about the learn, discuss, vote. I thought what was important was, logically, you can't discuss something unless you learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't discuss anything unless you learn how to discuss. Then, I mean, I think learning is just going to be the biggest part about it.
Mm-hmm.
When I tried writing out the guiding principles, and it's still going to be something that I continue to write over time, because it's weird how you like try to type something out. Like, as I'm thinking about it now, I can see it clearly, but then I go to type it and I'm like, what? But you have to learn about the people before you can discuss. You have to learn how to have a discussion. Like, you have to learn how to have a disagreement. Like, if you and I disagreed with something, right? I think I've gotten to know you a little bit enough to know that we could at least get to a point where we'd agree to disagree, even if, we couldn't see eye to eye. And, but that's the important part is, it's important to, like, hey, here's what I believe. Let me try to help you understand what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where people get it wrong is they shut off their brain to receiving anything. The minute they hear something they disagree with, they shut down, and they're immediately, their defense mechanism is attack, attack, attack. The person, this is where they get it wrong. They attack the person, not the idea or the argument. And there's also a way to kind of present that. Like, nobody's saying you have to be perfect at it, but it's all about admitting when you're wrong. If you did something wrong in regards to, yelling or screaming or like attacking a person, it's okay to learn. Okay, I didn't know I was wrong. Because people grow up. You talked about bubbles, but people grow up in a bubble themselves when they're growing up as little people, and then young adults, and then full grown adults. But and I guess I can use rural America as an example, only to show that the reality is, number one, if they don't have internet, their exposure is to people they talk to, the people they're around. And so they only know what they see, hear, and do. So it just, those habits, they compound, they grow, and you don't know anything else. So that's kind of where, in regards to how America, gets the way they are, they, including us and everybody, like the way that I am, is a product of my environment. And so with the discuss, then you go into like voting. Well, you can't vote necessarily unless you fully understand who you're voting for, what their platform is, what their, because I mean, sometimes we're stuck in a situation, Trump versus Biden. Nobody wants to vote for either one, but we're stuck, like, I mean, so it's just like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And so it's like, if you vote for Trump, you're damned if you do. And then if you vote for Biden, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's like, either way, there's a group of people that will judge you. And I think that's where people go wrong as well. It's like, I get people are going to have their opinions, but I think the most important thing is, it's okay to disagree with somebody, but at the end of the day, if they don't pay your bills, exactly. But the other part I was going to make, if they don't pay your bills, if they're not living in your house, there's no effect that their beliefs can have on your livelihood, then it shouldn't bother you at all. But let's say it does, and there's an issue where I don't know, because I don't know how abortion, that's a big hot topic, but I don't know how abortion would have anything to do with even people that have Christian beliefs. Like, how does that affect you?
Yeah,
By
just let them
by
do what they
making
want.
abortion legal, how does that truly affect you?
Right.
Because you can have one or you don't have to have one, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like I feel like the argument when things are made illegal, sometimes it's way too political because it's just like alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You created the mob.
Prohibition,
good job.
Exactly.
You made something illegal. Go ahead.
Even now with cannabis too, like a lot of the undergrounds, the drug trade still, or like Oregon, even more than just cannabis, all the drugs. If you make all these drugs legal and you're getting, safe transport of those drugs to the country or manufacturing or whatever, however they how they get it, it's not going from you're not getting it from a cartel, you're not getting it from overseas. It's like it's safe, it's not laced with anything. So it also just really improves the overall safety of everything if everyone is getting legal drugs, even if you may think it's dangerous, which some of them are pretty dangerous, but just the act of making it legal just makes it safer for everyone.
I think so too. I think the other thing too is that then they can regulate it to make it safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like they do pharmaceuticals. It's no different.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, that's another thing that pisses me off is like, how can you forget that literally almost 100 years now ago, give or take a decade or two, you were selling heroin and cocaine over the counter. And then Coke was literally in Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the stuff that blows my mind. It's like, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So
true.
But I'm kind of glad that you got on board, because not just because of your experience with development, but because it's important that we have more people that kind of believe that. It's important to have open-mindedness, and people who actually care about allowing people to have the information. Because we can all agree, like, the news is shit, and every 5 minutes, 10 minutes it changes. Like, somebody else shit on the street. Okay, this other person over here is I don't know, it just seems like the news cycle wants to change every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And in regards to something where it's a platform, it's not news based, and its intent and purpose is to be non-biased, then you can find what you need.
Mm-hmm. So, and when you're not making a profit off of ads too, that tends to make things a little bit more true. Like Facebook.
Exactly.
Facebook is showing you what companies, not only what Facebook thinks you want to see, but also what it thinks companies want you to see too. So
right,
it's all toxic. It's so toxic.
Super toxic. Yeah, I agree, because that's one of the main reasons why we obviously had no choice but to go nonprofit, right? Mainly because we wanted to be open source, in addition to having a way that just felt more comfortable for everybody to be able to come together and go, okay, we can actually believe in this and push for it, because we're not stressing about money and profits and stuff. So that's kind of the main reason why, when we first started having a conversation, Liam and I was like, we got to do a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. So,
no shareholders to tell us what to do.
Exactly. I think, well, yeah, we're still learning this whole landscape of the legalities of it, but Liam's doing a pretty good job. And I don't know, because I still see myself doing development 5 years from now, but I have a huge passion for content creation and really helping people learn and understand and just having a conversation is another reason why this podcast is here. And so it was funny because the topic of marketing was coming up last weekend, and to catch you up a little bit, and we were talking about the different forums. And they're like, "Oh, I don't know about influencers." I'm like, because that's where I have a little experience with. I've done drop shipping stores. I've done. I've failed, obviously. Still working a 9 to 5, but I failed in the sense that I didn't implement it properly. It was actually my second store, and I learned something new. And when finances are there, I'll probably try something else. But there's influencer marketing. There's traditional marketing, which is mailers and all that kind of stuff. door to door. But then there's also like the digital marketing space with social media and stuff like that,
right.
AdWords, etc.
Right, right.
But when people forget about the influencer marketing, they're like, oh, what about the political lining and which way does they lean? And I'm like, if you forget about the people who have big audiences, it's not so much that we, could still accomplish our goals elsewhere. Obviously, it's still possible. But I think what's important in this day and age that we live in is that we get the people that can help educate or encourage people to, listen, if you want to learn more about the politicians, like I have a heart for the young adults. That's kind of one of the biggest reasons why I joined this, this organization that we're building, is because I want young adults to understand if they disagree with something and they're 17, 16, 17, like they need to start getting the ball rolling. Like, do you want to live where you're at? Like, do you want to go to college and come back home and like, kind of like be somebody who's involved in that community for a long time? That's awesome. You need to learn how to get involved with things you disagree with, things you think don't work well. If you want to learn how to change something, if you want to learn like how do you write letters? How do you communicate? Like, how do you do these different things? How do you get involved? Because you'd be very surprised that there's a lot that can happen just by a letter.
Yeah. And these days, I feel like a lot of people don't really know how to actually get involved, because like a lot of young people, especially, they post a lot of stuff on social media, like a lot of political things that they believe in, but they don't really actually take any action to make the change that they want. So like retweeting something on Twitter doesn't actually do anything at all in the real world. Like it requires, activism or donating or actually getting out in the community and making physical, real change. So I feel like that's an important thing that people need to get more into these days.
Yeah. And I think as we build a platform that encourages people to do things, I'm not going to ignore, let me rephrase. I'm trying to say this properly. I'm not going to not acknowledge the fact that sometimes things need to happen that are just outside of what's legal or outside of what's, possible right now. And I just mean like anytime something is just completely not moral or just, I don't know. I mean, I'm speaking to those things that just make sense. Like if you truly believe in something, you're trespassing on company property because you're hugging a tree and, you change yourself to the tree. And of course that's trespassing, that's illegal, all that kind of stuff. But, my point in saying that is that sometimes there are examples where, there is no other option.
Right.
And so to your point, I think it's important that young adults get involved and learn how. And so that's kind of where my passion's at in regards to once we build this platform out and I'm able to pass along that responsibility of development, I would love to get into the content side of things. And because I love being kind of involved in a little bit of both. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, man. But one thing we haven't touched yet, and I keep forgetting a lot because we talked about a lot in the last podcast, but one of the main reasons why I actually met you, or digitally rather. You have written a library for Android. One of the main reasons why we kind of got interacted with each other is Android, is code.
Right.
And you created a library, Material-Dialogs, and I had a question about it. We kind of interacted a little bit with it. You were super helpful, and which thank you, by the way. Not
of course.
A lot of people that kind of, because you didn't expect that thing to blow up like it did you?
Not at all. No. Yeah. So I think I've told you this before, but yeah, it was originally a project that was just meant to solve the issue I had of making. We're getting more into engineering stuff now a little bit, but I was making multiple apps.
We're not going to talk about where you work.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not asking. I'm just, hey, listen, I don't want to, I love talking to you. I want to have another episode about other stuff. I don't have to redo this one.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was working on a few different apps, which are open source on my GitHub back then. When I was a video recorder, there was a file manager, some different stuff. And dialogues become a big component of a lot of UI these days. For non-engineers, like a little box that shows up on your screen that has buttons and textual stuff. So I wanted to follow Google's newer material design guidelines, which were so new that there wasn't really many components that Google had available for developers to use. And I was sick of remaking dialogues over and over and over again with custom layouts and icons and colors and all that. So I made this library just to make all that logic and all that layout stuff very reusable, where it would take a few lines of code to reproduce the exact same result across many apps. So I did that, and it took off. It's at, I think, 18,000 stars or something like that today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the issue that I had that caused me to reach out to you, and the problem was doing a custom dialogue, and I was trying to create a lot of custom stuff because I was reusing the same dialogue, but there was different context.
Right.
And so that's pretty much what it was. And then I found out my own problem, and it was just I had code in the wrong places. It's just, I didn't listen to Dry, which is do not repeat yourself. And you start creating these God fragments, and anyways, but yeah, so that's why I reached out, and he was a cool dude, and we had a lot in common. I mean, I freaking love Teslas. I wasn't trying to be weird. I've been following Elon Musk for a long time, and I know, I know a lot about him, and he kind of actually, it's funny you mentioned this a little bit ago, or on your tweet, is what I meant. He actually started coding at 12 too. He created his own game and actually sold it. See, this is where I'm like, where is this shit when I'm young? Like I think.
Right.
But that's why I have a heart for young adults too. Like eventually, one of the reasons why I want to be financially free is I want to be able to, and being a software developer is part of that kind of long-term goal. Is there's a place in Dallas. It's called the Dallas Makerspace, and we talked about this before, where you can 3D print. There's a place for coding. It's like these really cool, like long wooden tables, power strips, the whole nine. And then they have a place for you to do woodworking, welding. You can literally make an entire engine block. They have an entire metal CNC. Cool. Yeah. There's chemistry. They have a chemical hood. They have a whole bunch of stuff in that area.
Where are all these places where I've lived, man?
Right. But that's the thing though. The more I talk to people about the Dallas Makerspace, the more they get excited about it, because there's always small maker spaces in a lot of areas, but they're not big enough, or they don't have enough to get people to come along. And so what happens is you get some companies that need to throw tax money, at stuff. And so they'll donate to these maker spaces, and that's basically what it is. But my goal is to take this entire thing, build a model out of it that can scale from small to big. And my goal is, like, we go to a big city, right? And we pitch it. We come together with a couple of companies, and we say, this is what we're trying to do. This is how it's going to affect the community. And this is what I think, because I mean, if I had an area where I could learn how to code when I was young and actually had resources and people that wanted to help, I mean, man, like
that's a Shark Tank idea right there.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, well, it is, but the reality is, like, this is why I thought Radio Shack, because I worked at Radio Shack too. And I felt they dropped the ball huge, man. They literally are a household name. They could have like readjusted their model to teach code, to teach robotics, to teach these things to kids, to where there's courses, there's classes. I mean, it's where kids hang out and they create.
Yeah, I think I bought like Raspberry Pis there. I bought like breadboards and all the connectors and everything. Yeah, they have so many great things, and I was actually really sad to see them kind of die as well. So many cool things that they sell.
I think they were trying too hard to do too much. I think because when I worked there, they were selling all three, or I think pretty much all three major carriers. If not, they were missing one.
Wow.
And they were also selling all the prepaids. Mind you, if anybody thinks you cannot learn a lot of shit, trust me. When you're making commission money, you'll learn all the prepaid. You'll learn all the postpaid, because it's called prepaid and postpaid. Yeah. You'll learn all the plans and all the phones and all the accessories. Oh, by the way, this is Radio Shack. So they got home phones. They got like all the things you need for electrical components. Those drawers always get fucked up and pisses me off. Anybody's working at Radio Shack, you know what the hell I'm talking about. And because they were trying to do all of that. So they're trying to do all the Radio Shack in-house brands. They're trying to do all of that in addition to all the prepaid and postpaid stuff and technology and all the, crappy, cheap electronics.
Mm-hmm.
I really think they could have switched it around to where they really focused in on like helping kids learn about code. I mean, they really could have dove deep into that. They could have partnered with companies that already do projects like that. Like Kimiko, I think is one of them, where it's a monthly subscription and they'll send you like boxes where you can like create stuff every month.
Oh, that's
kind of cool. Yeah. It's like cardboard, like little.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you ever watch YouTube videos that have the ads in them, that's one of the companies that sponsor channels. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I want to take that and I want to go to a big city and I want to kind of build it out, but I want to put in there that, if there's enough donations and enough budget, I want to support a smaller city.
Mm-hmm.
That way it's not just, it's only in the big cities. Well, no, it's very possible to come together, and in the designing of it on the ground floor, we also consider the surrounding cities and go, how can we actually, because I mean, travel time, depending on, where cities are, it makes sense to not have it in every city.
Yeah.
But have you ever been to Phoenix?
Not yet.
Well, Phoenix is similar to, I don't know the San Diego area, but the point is like it's a very, very well gridded out city. Like everything's a grid, but it's easy to get to the different cities. It's not a far drive. We're talking like 20 minutes, like max, right? 30 minutes, maybe 30, 45 minutes. But the point is it wouldn't make sense to put it would make sense to put like a very big makerspace, like the Dallas makerspace in like Tempe-ish area. But then it would make sense to do probably another one all the way out in Apache Junction or Gilbert, where like it's we're talking like 30, 40, 50 plus miles between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it would give people the ability, because it's 24/7. Like you just use an RFID tag, boom, get in. Cool. You know what I mean? It was really cool, man. And it was just because we lived a little far away was one of the main reasons why it was difficult to do it often. But, it's one of those things, man, where it's, if they had built that out, man, and in other cities, I think it would be, really cool thing.
I wonder why they haven't. That's so strange. Like San Francisco seems like such a good place for something like that, even, or Minneapolis. Like, so many cities could use that.
Yeah. Let me,
sounds like something you should pitch to whoever owns the Dallas location.
Well, the thing is because it's volunteer, I was a part of it, and I was talking to the IT guy, and it's like $50 a month, man. It's like not that bad.
It's like nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was a part of that, and I was talking to the IT guy, the guy that ran all their servers and stuff, and he was like, yeah, nope, we just don't have enough people to come in. So it's funny because a lot of times people want to get involved with stuff. And you from the outside, you think it's this crazy big thing and you don't understand. Like all you got to do is get in there and like, just ask.
Right.
It's like the easiest thing to do. And that's like the first way to get your foot forward. Like for me with development, I think the thing that I've been hesitant to do, even with like other developers, is like, just ask for things that I don't understand or don't know. I mean, I kind of did that with you with the Material-Dialogs, but I think I need to get out of my head and do that more, because I'm thinking like, I've developed an app, like I'm good. But then I also need to realize too, that like, there's a lot more that I need to learn and understand, and it's okay to ask. So those that like, want to learn code, like obviously Google your heart's content. There's tons of YouTube videos and stuff, but also don't be afraid to get on Twitter and just hit people up.
That's even really a thing in if you have like an actual job too. There's this thing called imposter syndrome that people always talk about with the tech industry, where you feel like,
there you go. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, even if you're very good at what you do, you feel like you're not enough because you see so many other people that seem like they're very good at what they do. So I think that's really a problem for everyone, and it tends, in my opinion, to make people less likely to ask questions, because they, you might think like, if I make myself look like I don't know something, they're going to think I'm stupid. People need to get out of that mindset and realize that the only way to learn is to ask questions, and everyone has to do it, even people that are senior engineers.
Yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to become a developer, because I thought, I don't know, the engineering environment is just so much fun, man. Like,
It is.
so without talking about where you work now, but like, what has been your experience as a software engineer from, because we talked about, you worked at Target, you worked at a couple of startups. So like, have you ever felt that way as a developer?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially since I don't have a degree, people kind of assume that you're not really a professional developer sometimes if you don't have a degree in computer science. And since I've taught myself almost everything I know, I've learned a lot recently, like from other coworkers. But since I've taught myself everything I know, for the most part, it's hard to know if I know the right way to do something, because you're just going off of what you've learned elsewhere, not what someone has told you is like what's the word? Like the scholar, not scholar, like the scholastic, can't think of the name
academic?
for it. The academic, yeah, there you go. Yeah, the academic way to do something, like architecture and algorithms and all that kind of stuff.
It's crazy. Have you looked up who created Kotlin?
I haven't.
So I don't know the guy's name. I just remember the story, and when I listened to it, the guy was I'm gonna get a lot of it wrong, but the gist of it is he was looking for something to do in regards to like his masters, or like it was academic related.
Really?
And he was working with JetBrains, I think is because that's where it was kind of created.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to build something that was like a successor to Java.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because when I remember, I can't remember a lot of the details, but I just remember like listening, like hearing it, because I think the guy was on a podcast is where it was. And he was talking about kind of how all that came to be. And it's crazy. Like, you create a whole new language, and I'm just trying to like wrap my head even around like Java or C++, like the guy that created Linux, like how the hell, like, I know it comes from like a tinkerer mindset, but it's like,
yeah,
it's a mind fuck, because the guy that created Linux, do you have any idea? I'm
the
sure he
scale
does,
at which it would reach. Yeah.
No, the scale at which he, like, every cloud machine is built off of Linux. Like, holy hell.
And Android phones too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Linux. It's true. Everywhere, literally everywhere. Even in cars. Like, I'm pretty sure my Tesla is some sort of Linux.
Yeah. Did you know TVs are actually on Linux?
That doesn't surprise me.
I found that out because I was literally trying to find a way to hack my TV because I hated I was just trying to like tear out the bullshit.
Oh, like was it a smart TV?
Yeah.
So you're trying to get the annoying apps off of it, I'm sure,
yeah.
right? Yeah, I have a Tizen Samsung TV, and that it's so annoying having all those stupid smart things apps. I don't want any of that. I just want a simple TV with HDMI and
Well, here's the thing though. I would not mind a smart TV in the sense that like it has an app store or just a place that I can download apps that I want on my TV, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's it. Period. It didn't come with anything else.
Oh yeah, I just find that like the smart TVs never have like they're always half-assed. Like I use an Apple TV.
They're always half-assed.
Yeah, I have an Apple TV and a Chromecast, and they just work so much better than like the slow UI of a.
Like,
you use the arrows on a remote.
That stuff's pretty shitty. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I always find that's why I got an Apple TV, because I was like, oh man, this thing is so much smooth. It's so butter. Actually, and I don't mean to sound too much like an Apple fanboy, but I just love the fact that with the Apple TV, you can type with your phone.
Oh, I know. It's so
dope, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's some stuff that Apple does that you're just like, good job. Like, you're thinking about the user. And then other times you're just like, you don't give a shit.
Right.
Yeah, but that's how I feel like with you probably notice this now, huh? Where on YouTube, when you click some Amazon links, they won't go to the Amazon app.
I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, so you have to pay attention. So some of the links that you click don't deep link properly. At least that's how I understand it. Yeah. Into the app, it'll take you to the web browser.
That's annoying. I wonder if that's Amazon's fault or Apple's fault.
Well, the thing is I'm trying to understand if it's certain way people make links, But then again, I'm like, but it doesn't matter. It would still kind of resolve to Amazon's domains, and it could still, or it supposedly still should be able to, with the way they have the deep linking and all that stuff, should still be able to go right into the app.
That's one of the things that I feel like Android still does. Like I'm a longtime Android user, but as you know, I'm an iPhone user now these days, and Apple Watch user. And that's just one thing that the Android platform still does. Yeah, it still does so much better. Like the intent system and the freedom of sharing and opening things on an Android phone it's far superior to what Apple has. And to Apple's credit, it is very secure with the way they have it set up. But still, there are so many limitations that I find annoying, and I hope they fix it.
Well, because I'm learning too a little bit with what I've gotten into. Granted, I know you are on a bigger scale, but I've even encountered this because I just started coding for the Project Guardian app.
Right.
And I'm finding that I totally have been sucked into this image loading library issue where I'm thinking like, what the hell? Why can't you load a simple URL? Not everybody's going to understand this, but there's a clear text thing that's blocked by default now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You have to enable that. I'm like, what the
trust
fuck?
manager thing. Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Well, I mean, obviously I have to read up on when I upgrade to shit. I need to read up on what's been upgraded, like what actually has been changed. I should probably look into that. But yeah, so I just blindly upgraded and updated a lot of the apps in Android Studio and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, here we go. I already know how to do this. Let's start throwing. I was making a joke in Slack. I was like, oh, I should probably use Picasso, huh, Aidan?
I saw that. Yeah.
But I was having so many problems. I was like, oh, well, I guess I got to try Glide now. And so I went to Glide, which is another image loading library for those that don't know. And still same problem. I'm like, what the hell? And so finally, I remember seeing the error where somebody was like, oh, yes, you got to actually enable clear text
in the manifest.
You got to enable that now. I'm like, what the hell? I saw it, but I didn't realize that was the answer at first. And then I started, and I couldn't. I was stuck on it for another day or two, and I was like, "Oh shit! Well, let me look at this up again." And I found that, and I did it, and now everything's loading.
Yeah.
Ah, shit. Okay.
I will say I personally prefer Picasso, not because it's Square necessarily, but because it uses OKIO internally, which I mentioned in Slack too. It's I would botch it if I try to explain the whole thing, but there's some fancy stuff. There's a fly in here. There's this fancy algorithm that OKIO does, which is another Square library, where it's able to pre-allocate certain buffers of byte arrays. Yeah. And it's able to reuse these buffers, if I remember correctly. And TLDR, it uses far less memory, RAM, on Android phones, which is pretty important for low-end phones. And you get faster performance as a result. So Picasso has some really cool internal stuff. I wish I could explain it better, but
no, I mean, it makes more sense to me as I'm starting to piece it together in my head, because I barely touched C, and where it kind of talked about, where you get into like actual memory allocations and how you actually mess with that.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just saw your message now. Internally uses OKIO. Nice. Okay. I'll switch back to Picasso. I didn't switch to Glide for any other reason except for I was pissed off because it wasn't working, and then I found the solution. So I'll switch back.
I do like Glide actually, but I like Picasso better these days. I think most of my apps that are still on GitHub actually do still use Glide because I never got around to switching them over. But
I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah, works well.
But how's the caching with Picasso? Let's talk about that. I know it has the ability, but is there a difference between Glide and Picasso? I don't
think so. I think it's just the standard. Well, so yeah, I guess it would use OKIO as well for disk reading and writing to the disk. So I think you would also get that the benefit of performance from that.
Excuse me. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Jesse Wilson, who works on the Cash App team, which is part of Square in Canada, he actually personally explained to me how OKIO works on a whiteboard, and I pretty much forgot all of it. I wish I would have remembered.
But this is the thing, though. Like, this is why, for me, like, I know there's going to be so much I can't like videotape record. What's the word that we use nowadays because we have smartphones that record digitally? Anyways, right. Don't you ever get caught like, oh, and I'll record that or I'll videotape that? Like, I think I catch myself usually always saying videotape as well.
Yeah, I guess I just say record.
Yeah,
kind of a standard.
I get stuck with videotape sometimes. Record that, but anyways, no, because go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's funny that the English language has all these words that are legacy words that stick around just because people have always used them. I have an example the other day that I can't remember now. It's like related to the rotary phone, like the there's like all these words that mean something completely different than what they're used for in modern day culture and in pop culture. It's super interesting.
Yeah, it is crazy. I love when a random meme will pop up and they're bitching at the English language or making fun of it because of like people trying to learn the English language and the fact that like people who don't speak English learning how the word that's bad in a certain decade actually meant good. And then like, oh, that's the shit. Like learning cuss words and they're like, that's the poo? What poo? Like why?
Have you seen that comedian that has that? He has a whole set just on that on the word shit. Like literally his whole set. I saw him live in LA. He's like I think he's a Polish guy, and his whole thing is talking about the English language and how all these words that like even the word dude, like there are so many contexts in which you can use the word dude and people kind of just understand what you mean when you use it. But you could say like the letter B, like you could just say buh, like buh. It has literally no meaning, but like the context that we use them in gives you all the meaning.
I feel like sooner or later we're going to turn into Groot.
Yeah, one word for everything.
Well, he technically says 3, but he does tone modulation. Those that watch the it's on Disney Plus. If you watch Earth's Mightiest Heroes, it's an animated version of Avengers. And there's dude, it's dope. Go check that shit out. When you're coding it at work, this is a dope thing about being a software engineer as well. You can just like jam to music or probably put something on while you're doing, and that's why I love my work right now, because I was actually super productive today, but I was actually also coding. So I love environments like that where I can get my work done, but I can because that's how I am. Because like if I'm like this weird person where like I find these tiny little small slits or slots of like time when I'm asking somebody to do something or talking to somebody, and then like I have this slot of time where my brain's not doing anything. I'm like, oh, cool. Let me come over here and code. And it's like a weird thing where I'm challenging myself to come back to this brain space that I have like just focused on over here. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That this. And like, I've actually found more solutions in those slots of time than I have working on a project for like months.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah. So if we could talk about kind of how you think of engineering solutions to problems when you're coding, like, so, because that's interesting, because I think that would probably help me learn a little bit too. So let's kind of go back to Target, I guess, because that's probably something you can talk more about, right?
Yeah. So
I know that you had mentioned before that the teams were a little different, and then they ended up changing them to where they were better a little bit. So like, how do you approach problem solving with some of the problems or with some of the coding issues you've come up with or encountered, I guess is the way I'm trying to say that. If you know what I'm talking about, like how do you approach things when you're trying to solve coding problems? That's probably the best way to say that.
Like if I'm trying to implement like a new feature, or if I run into a bug, or like solving a bug or fixing something that I broke. that
pretty
kind of
much.
Thing.
Yeah.
That's a good question, I guess. Like in a lot of my, I've been doing a lot of debugging actually last week for a lot of issues I've had. I guess breakpoints are really the standard programming tool for a lot of debugging, but I like to use a lot of reactive architectures lately. So like workflow, I can mention this, workflow by Square. It's a reactive architecture, so you have separated business logic and separated UI logic. So there's a two-way bidirectional stream of state and events that go back and forth. So events change state and state renders UI.
Nice.
So when you're debugging these sorts of things that run on threads like coroutines, it gets really challenging to follow where things are because you're crossing between many different thread boundaries. So I guess it sounds kind of simple, but I like to use a lot of logging statements like with Timber or Logcat or whatever. I take my name on there and have a message, and then I just follow the Logcat and kind of see where the flow of things is going. I don't know if that really answers the question exactly.
No, it does, because I find myself doing the same. And like when you start having conversations like this, and I would love to have more of them. Which, by the way, I want to say thank you. A little while ago, I think it was during one of the Project Guardian meetings. I was talking about like engineering and like how because it's hard. Like I'm coming into an environment where I'm vulnerable because on Keep, the recipe app that I made and I'm still working on, it was the first project that I worked on with somebody else. Right. Number one. Number two was the first project where I wasn't working with somebody on the same operating system. He was iOS, I was Android. And then now I'm coming into this where I'm like, we're all going to be kind of working together with Kotlin multi-platform, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2 steps above where I think I would have liked to prefer to start, which is just on an Android platform project with just another person.
Right.
But now this is a little different. I mean, still stoked about it, but because now it's an extra layer where it's like it's not just 2 people working on an Android project. Now it's 3 people working on a multi-platform project, and it's like this, trying to figure out, like I can figure out the Android stuff kind of and like slam my head against the wall and figure out the things that I've broken or not doing correctly. But then now I have to consider the way that we build something, and then what do we share between, and like you said, the business logic, all those things I'm still learning. Because the reality, I've done the slam your head against the wall method of development because it's all personal projects. So I can slam my head against that wall and redo the drywall and do it again all over again. But that's pretty much what I've done. And instead of like learning like architecture, I've tried to do, but it's been hard for me to kind of grasp because there's a lot of people that have like a lot of good structures. So here's clean architecture, blah, blah, blah. But for me to understand it, it's like, I got to see it working in a way that makes sense.
Right.
The clean architecture is great, but I'm trying to see it in a way that I can understand. I know that seems dumb because you're like, here it is. It's a pizza. I'm like,
but how do you make it?
But how'd you make it though? Like, but we just told you.
Yeah.
But how did you do the dough? I don't know. I know it seems kind of weird and other people might get it, but like, I really do think differently. I'm a person that like, I could work with somebody and like, and hopefully this doesn't happen with us, but like, I'll work with somebody and like, all of a sudden, like the way that I think will frustrate and piss off the other person. You're like, bro, I just told you that. I'm like, but I there's just like piece that doesn't make sense. I don't know what's going on here, but yeah, actually, it's a good question though. With you working in a team, have you ever encountered somebody that that was difficult to work with, not because they were a tough person or like a mean person or a jerk or an asshole or whatever, but like, have you ever encountered somebody that was a little difficult to work with because of the way they did things? And like, how did you overcome stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with people that have come from other platforms. I've had coworkers or people on other teams that I work with indirectly that came from entirely different platforms, and they're just getting into this new platform, like getting into Android. So they tend to have a lot of questions about how things work. And, since they're bending their way of thinking into a new platform, because each platform has their own specific ways of doing things, they do tend to ask a lot of questions. And I've, not even just with myself, but I've seen heated conversations with other people where like they're trying to answer the question and they really just don't get it. And they have this back and forth conversation, and you can kind of hear their voices raised a little bit, where you can tell they're getting frustrated. But I think it's really just part of the job for a lot of people, like especially if you're a senior engineer, the mentorship part is really big. So kind of getting over the frustration and learning sometimes better ways to explain things or communicate it. That sometimes that's really the simplest solution. No one is an expert right away. Like I remember when I started out with Android, you know, building an activity, putting the manifests together, building layouts, it all seems like a foreign language at first, but as you do the same thing over and over and over and over again, it kind of becomes muscle memory, and you're able to build up a new app really quickly down the road. So it just takes time and mentorship, really, or studying, research.
Yeah. And I mean, that's pretty much what's happened to me. Like I'll have to, that's how I work. Like because the whole throw my head against the wall kind of thing, like I've had to repetitively do a lot of things. So yeah, definitely. But so through working with retail and then having to be an assistant manager and like train people and like going through that through Radio Shack and Sprint, and then the leadership skills I learned in the Army, and then for the short stint that I was there, and then coming back and going back into other companies working with teams, the thing that I've learned that is the most important is everybody learns differently. And so the most quickest thing that people can do is it's probably most important for you to have the conflict as soon as possible, because that's usually what happens with me. Everywhere I go, I have a conflict with somebody. I laugh, and I don't mean to sound like I'm an asshole, but I just laugh now because it is on point every time I start a new company. Somebody's gonna get pissed. So when I got to this company, I was like, "Listen, I'm gonna, if I can have everybody pause, please. One of you is gonna get mad at me, and we're gonna have a go out. We're gonna go at it. Okay, just to let you know right now, it's gonna happen. I don't know who's gonna do it, but one of y'all are gonna get pissed at me, and it's gonna be great. But we're gonna be buds after. So just know that." But it's just because I'm a straight talker, and so I come off sometimes abrasive. But what people don't understand is like I'm just trying to be honest about things I don't get, and if I don't tell you, I'm gonna sit here acting like I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna suffer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I've done it, and just learning how people learn and then try to present information in the way they receive it, I think has been the best way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, my cat just puked in the background.
She's doing what?
Oh, I think she just threw up on the carpet somewhere.
Oh man, that sucks.
Take care of it later. Yeah.
Okay.
Cat problems.
I don't know if I sent you the meme, but there was this funny meme of or just a photo of this chick who's doing like a Zoom conference or whatever, and a cat walks across and like goes to get in her lap, but the ass is facing the webcam.
Oh yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, the one that you saw in the background a minute ago too. We have two cats here. The bigger boy definitely likes to do that. My monitor right here, he likes to literally sit right here on my keyboard during meetings. And yeah, they all see his butt like right in their faces. Yeah.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah,
that's funny. So let's see. Let's see what else we got in here. Okay, here we go. So we know that Android's moving towards Kotlin, but this is interesting because as we started getting into the multi-platform environment, I started looking more into Kotlin. And I did not realize that they were, implementing it as a true multi-platform environment or a coding language. Like the fact that they're doing Kotlin for web, like that's cool. What I think is cool about it though is when you have a language that you can literally write a couple of different projects in the same code, like it just seems, I don't know, when I think about it, it just seems easier that way.
For sure.
Now, what's been your experience with Kotlin and like, have you worked with a lot more legacy code? I know and when I ask that question, I'm just asking like, are you guys, I'm trying to form this in a way that maybe you can help me understand if you can answer, but do you work more legacy? Because from what I understand, most companies, they still have a lot of legacy Java.
Yeah, that is something I think I can talk about. We actually have a whole team dedicated to tracking that. Like we have a team for developer experience, and we have a team for like foundation, which is like architectural stuff, architectural concerns, which I can also talk about. I think they're hiring as well if anyone's interested. But I
tried and I failed.
Yeah. there's always another time. You can try again.
I'm not against trying again. I just think it's hilarious. You got the email and I didn't. Sad.
I think you got it like a few days. You got it eventually, didn't you? Like a few days after I told you. I think they.
No, I think I had mentioned. Well, no, yeah, I think I had no, because remember you were like, sorry to give you the bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I never received the email. No, it's cool. I mean, hey, I get it. I don't like that. I think that's the thing that's been the most struggle is like, in one person's perspective, they're like, yeah, put all your, because Liam was the one who was originally helping me with my resume. And he was like, yeah, put your other work stuff on there. But then it confuses people that I talk to about the resume. They're like, so have you worked on, because then it's like, also, it's like, how do you, because I know I just got to find a startup or something or somebody that wants to hire me and understand that I'm not going to be a senior developer, but I'm also not just a beginner. Like I can dive in and probably work out something. It's not going to be the most beautiful architecture, but I can make it work and we can get something going pretty quickly if I'm able to do it full time. And so, but yeah, I would show the people the resume and they're like, so how much corporate experience have you had? And I'm like, about that. But I think that's the biggest struggle is like, how can like, and I think that needs to be more, this is why I believe that job descriptions are horrid and they need to be some sort of like scalable solution for job descriptions, because I feel like companies will just come in and just like make this beautifully random put together thing that they think is going to be an industry standard, but it's really not. It's whatever garbled mess they want to put in there. And so that's how HR departments, which have no clue what they're doing in regards to like understanding what's a good fit or not, they're literally just going through software that's like, we're going to make sure you have all these keywords. And I understand when it comes to scale that is a solution to the problem. But the issue that I feel is because the description is not the same in every company, but it's an industry level job like junior developer. But every company you go to, junior developer is going to be different description. Nowadays, actually, and I don't know, because you're not in the job market, obviously, but I've seen terrible things where like what would be considered, in my opinion, a senior developer based on conversations I've had with other people, they're like, yeah, they're asking that for a junior developer and they're asking for this rate. And it's like, how are you? That doesn't make any sense. Like, in certain industries, and I don't know if this is true, but I remember some sort of vague piece of information that like there's certain, like, I don't know if it's plumbers or just, that type of trade. Like there's a certain amount of money that you make, and there's certain, like, you can't do plumbing the way you want to. You can't do electrical the way you want to. Like, there's no way you can describe that job in any other way except you're going to do electrical wiring.
Right.
That's it. There's standards, there's policies to that. You're going to do plumbing, there's standards, there's policies and stuff to that. And so, but with coding, or not just engineering, but with certain engineering jobs, it just seems like they want to make up those job descriptions however they want.
Yeah, I've gotten weird messages from recruiters that say like, we're looking for a mobile engineer, iOS and Android and React or something. Like they combine all of these different job roles into one role, and it's just like, it's so unrealistic for the industry. I don't know where these recruiters get their ideas of jobs or what keywords they're using. Like I know you know this. I hate React Native, and I've gotten
you've mentioned it.
Yeah, I've had recruiters reach out with React Native jobs. Like, how did you find me with these requirements through LinkedIn? It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that, and it doesn't make any sense because I'm like, first off, that's not anything that I've posted online. So why are you reaching out to me? Like, I'm only looking for Android. I'm not saying I'm unwilling. It's just, I can't, like, I'm getting to the point where I'm so frustrated with, like, I'm getting nothing but Indian recruiters. I'm not trying to be like biased or racist, but it's like, I don't think that's what I'm saying. I just want to clarify. That's not my intent. I'm just very frustrated at the fact that they'll ask me questions in an email and then they want to call me and I answer the call and they ask me the same goddamn questions in the fucking phone call. I'm like, I seriously got so fed up. I was like, did you read my email? Did you read it? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you have it in front of you? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, what does it say? You just asked me that question. I just answered that. They're like, well, how much corporate experience have you had? I'm like, I swear to God, if somebody else asks me that question, I want somebody from America. I hate to say that, but it's like Americans understand the context, and recruiters that have recruited for developer roles, they understand the context along the fact that if they're recruiting for a specific role, and they're not asking for senior level, maybe not even like super junior or super mid, or something somewhere in between. I'm like, I can fit right there. I'm not junior. I'm not mid. I'm like right in the middle. And go ahead.
There is a really weird difference in quality between like now that you mention it, between like outsourced recruitment and in-house recruitment. Like Target and Square both have amazing recruitment teams, and they're all in-house, and it really is noticeable the way that they present themselves, the way that they message you. It's so different.
Well, and then I think because. And I don't know. I haven't updated you on this. I'm kind of excited, but I thought that one opportunity I don't know if I told you about, but this lady I've been in talks with for the Mind Grub stuff. Mm-hmm. So I thought that like fell off, but supposedly the person I was going to do the interview with today or yesterday got COVID.
Oh no!
I didn't know this. I'm like, oh shit. So I called her, but the thing that bothers me is like, I'm a stickler for communication, man. And I think we're becoming pretty good buddies. I think you can understand that. Like, I'm cool if this is what people need to understand about me. I'm cool. Don't text me back. That's cool. But I'm going to text you, and that's just me. Like, I love communication. I love being clear. I love making sure everything's up front. It's mainly just because I don't want people to like, I'm learning now that like some of my communications, like I need to learn how to leave things open-ended, but that bothers the hell out of me. But it's mainly so that people can ask me questions.
Oh, right.
And it doesn't occur to me.
Right.
But, I'm learning that there's still more of that I need to learn. But no, I mean, I love reaching out there. I love talking to people and text messaging and stuff like that. But with this lady, she just wouldn't, because in a professional environment, like I'm a stickler for like, communication, email, Slack, whatever. It's weird because my company doesn't email
at all.
Zero.
What do they do?
Slack. Everything.
What? Everything? Oh no.
Everything, dude. I haven't gotten a single email, and the only time that I've emailed them is when I wanted to ask for time off, and it was unpaid because it's under 90 days. But I wanted to be clear about, hey, I want this time off, and I CC'd like my manager, my lead, and they're like, yeah, you don't need to do that. Just CC your lead. I'm like, this is weird. I'm like used to the whole CYA.
Yeah.
It was just weird, man. But it's a great way, I feel, to kind of run things in a way that like, yeah, email is good. And yeah, big companies, they use email for sure. But I'm not saying Slack is the best thing for everything as well, but it's a really interesting environment. It's really more laid back. Like it's cool, but I wish there would be a little bit more of understanding that, because a lot of these people, I think, when you ever have anybody at your work that's been there for more than 10 years?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's not people that I've been with for that, obviously for the same period of time, but yeah, there are some people at Square that have been there for a very long time, basically since the company like kind of took off.
Yeah. But crazy. Do you have anybody like around 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, one of my direct coworkers, actually.
Yeah. So what I've noticed, to the point of why I brought that up, is they are either really nice about kind of explaining things because they've been there for long, or
they're sick of it.
Well, it's not so much that. It's they get so stuck in the way they see things and understand things, and I think that's a problem, to the point to where when they write documentation or when they're talking to someone, they talk in ways like they're referencing things to you without realizing that you don't know.
Right.
And then that's where personally I freak out, and I feel like, I should probably go see a doctor about this, man. Because like it bothers the heck out of me, because I'm having like these mini freakouts, because I'm just like, I don't think you guys understand, because I'm like battling like, well, if I first off, I don't mind letting them know I don't know, but then it's annoying because I have to like back and forth of, they're like, oh, it's over here. And when you don't know what to think of or what to like look for, it defeats the whole purpose of, oh, well, you should, go look for this place or this thing. You didn't know that. And I'm like, obviously not. Or I wouldn't be asking. But yeah, I mean, have you had anybody where they express things in ways that, like, there's a lot of missing context?
Yeah, actually, definitely. And luckily they tend to just link out to other resources, because the companies I've worked for tend to have a lot of like they use Confluence, the Jira wiki system, that
Atlassian.
Yeah. They use that pretty extensively. So there's always documentation left behind pretty heavily. So
yeah,
a lot of people that are like that, they kind of just assume you know everything. And when you say, oh, what's that? Then they just link you to a wiki page that you have to read through instead of explaining it themselves.
Yeah, I know time's important. I know the tough thing I'm going to struggle with is the way that I learn. Like, if I just have a quick 5-minute conversation, like, I respect people's time 100%. I don't intend to be a guy that's like always wanting to, like, I prefer FaceTime over a phone call if it's possible, or a phone call over text if possible, simply because, like, text, it just gets so misconstrued. You ever have that conversation with somebody and, like, what you're saying is not getting across, or they're not hearing what you're saying?
I don't think so.
Like, for me, it's like you'll say, I don't know, maybe it's just context, but it's like, for me, that's why I prefer phone calls over text pretty much overall, because there's a lot of tone of voice. Like us having this versus if we were just like having a conversation over a group chat or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's a totally different feel, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had something on the top of my mind and I lost it. Yeah, I guess that this thing kind of fits into company culture as well, though, because there is, I can say this, I think, about Square too. There is a culture of openness, and people generally say, like, if you want to pair with them one-on-one to solve an issue, like if someone else has expertise in something that you're trying to figure out, they'll just say, like, put some time on my calendar and we'll meet then. So even if someone's really busy daily, they'll at least probably have 30 minutes of time on their calendar that they can make to meet with you. So I definitely think that openness is really a cultural value that a lot of companies have and some may not have. It's something to look for.
Yeah, I think that's important. So one thing we didn't get to last time that, we're getting to past that 2-hour mark, I don't want to forget about it. Your beautiful Tesla.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen all the I have a big picture of it right here. That's why I'm looking to the right. I don't know if you've seen all the stuff I've done to it.
You got a photo shoot done or something?
A personal photo shoot, I guess. But no,
I'm not laughing. I'm saying I'll probably do it too.
Right. Yeah, I got it wrapped in PPF, paint protection film, and then they put ceramic coating over that. So when I wash it, I literally just spray it with water and I drive away, and the water all just like rolls right off with all the dirt and dust. So this protective coating makes it so easy to maintain, and obviously it protects from getting scratched. But yeah, I painted the calipers blue. I tinted all the windows. I lowered it a few inches. So it's become a little project. It's definitely less of a project than my motorcycles, though, because there's only so much you can do with an electric car. You can't upgrade the engine or anything. Not that you would.
You can take a lot out of it.
You can, yeah. It's already so fast that there really isn't much you would need to do with
pretty much.
Anyways, it's really just looks that you'd want to change, which I've done.
Have you seen those Teslas that they use for drag racing?
That's true. Yeah. Or even there's a company out here in California called Unplugged Performance, and they recently had a Model 3 go. What was the track? There's a Laguna Sec, I think, is one of them. There's some pretty big tracks, famous tracks down here, and they took their custom Model 3 out, and I think they got one of the fastest lap times ever on the track. And they had like the full roll cage in the car. They took a bunch of stuff out that weighed a lot. I think they even upgraded parts of the motor, so you can tweak the amperage, the voltage output, whatever, from the battery to the motor, so you can get more torque, which decreases range. But if you're on a track, it doesn't really matter what the range is as long as it's fast.
Right. As long as it's fast.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff you can do like that, but yeah, you lose a lot of your you get performance at the cost of efficiency.
Yeah. So like, what options did you go with?
I got the long range all-wheel drive. I thought about the performance, but losing, I think 40 or 80, I think it's like 80 miles of range, you lose going with the performance over the long range. So since I like to drive a lot, I went with the long range instead.
That's actually been my struggle.
Yeah.
I've opted to go with, at least with my beautiful thing here. I have a photo of mine. I just built it and took a screenshot of the Tesla order.
Oh, nice.
And it's my dream car. It's $80,000, performance, blue, black interior, full self-driving.
Yeah.
Oh, it's slick, man. Thing looks dope. And
yeah, the full self-driving is so fun too.
Yeah, well, they got that beta. I think the beta 5.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into it yet, unfortunately.
Of FSD.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, 80 grand. But I'm between that too. But I mean, here's the argument. Like, where do you charge your Tesla?
I can do it downstairs in my garage, or I can go down to the supercharger that's like a block from me. California has superchargers.
Of course. So the question is why long range and not performance if you can charge it back up to I think it's 90%, because Elon was saying we shouldn't charge it to 100, right?
Not unless you're going on a big trip. Yeah. Well, so I drove to LA a few weeks back, and I only had to charge once for the whole trip. And if I would have had to stop, I would have maybe added an hour and a half or so to my drive time. So it makes a pretty big difference on.
How far was LA from you?
Ooh, it's like 6. I think it's like 6.5 hours from me. So it's a pretty long
150 drive. Miles.
Something.
200 miles.
Yeah, let me check. It is 376 miles. So my range is around like 100 or 321, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the performance is like 270, 280, something like that. So it's a pretty big difference.
And you still get a really good speedy performance, even with long range, right?
Yeah, I bought the acceleration boost too. So I think it's 0 to 60 in like 3.1 seconds or something like that.
Oh, there's an acceleration boost? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a add-on package. So you can switch between chill mode and sport mode when you buy that package. So chill mode like dramatically reduces your acceleration, but saves you a bunch of battery.
So is that something you add on in the order form, or do you just like tell them you want it?
Even with full self-driving, actually, you can, if you don't get it right off the bat, like when you order the car, you can buy it later, and it just downloads as a software update to your car. So you can buy them through the app.
Isn't that nuts?
It's so cool. Yeah.
So nuts. Like, if you want something, you can just make your car whatever by buying it through an app. Did you hear the story of a guy that accidentally bought like a 4,008, like it was a stupid amount of money type of an upgrade for his Tesla because he butt dialed it sort of deal?
That. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was a full self-driving upgrade, actually. It used to be 5,000. It's gone up to 10,000 recently. When I bought it, it was 8, but it used to be 5. I wish I would have gotten it when it was 5.
Yeah, he keeps raising that price, man. But I don't care. Like, I'm a believer. But that Hummer, though.
Oh my god,
shit,
it's amazing.
Bro. Can we talk about that freaking?
Yeah.
Freaking
I never
Warthog.
Thought I would like a Hummer.
Warthog. That's the name of it. They should have just fucking called that shit Warthog. That's what they should have called that. That's what I'm calling it.
It's 10,000 horsepower. It has like 370 miles of range. Can do the crab walk. Like it's amazing. I never would have ever thought they would do anything like that. Although my dad actually brought this up to me. GM used to have electric cars back in the day that a lot of celebrities were buying into, and it kind of got shut down by the industry because the gas companies don't want electric cars to take off.
Yeah, so in the 70s.
GM used to be the leader in electric cars, and it dropped off, but they're making a comeback now, so it's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that more companies. What I'm more excited about, and this is another reason why I want to buy a Tesla. In the end, I want to I just want all electric.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'll never buy any ICE vehicles or
Mhm.
ICE toys,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
but I believe in what Elon Musk is doing. People, the thing is, I think people get too caught up in who he is, and they want to judge him. I'm like, look at the bigger picture. This motherfucker is going to save you a lot of time because he got bored in traffic.
Right.
And so he created a company to make tunnels. Come on
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Get behind that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like,
he's progressing humanity so much.
Yeah, with SpaceX. I mean, shit, bro. We're gonna have fucking space internet, dude.
Right.
And they've already tested it. It's gonna be like they're testing with I think it was ideal conditions, obviously, but gigabits. They already transfer gigabit speeds in space because obviously light travels faster in a vacuum.
Right.
But that is so awesome. And when the wife and I go to we're going to call it the van life now, but we're going to get an RV. We're going to get I forget the name of it now. I'm having a brain fart, but SpaceX is Starlight or Star. Yeah, that.
Right.
Why am I having such a brain fart right now?
Starlink.
Starlink, thank you. Yeah, Starlink. Like we're gonna get that because I can literally do development from anywhere. That's one of the main reasons why I want to become a developer, because that is literally the next step. As a 100% remote developer,
right?
we can be anywhere.
The satellites concern me a little bit sometimes, though, because with the amount of people on Earth, like if everyone on the whole planet switched to satellite internet, the amount of satellites that would be required to handle that bandwidth, it would I feel like it would start to cloud the atmosphere with metal. Like you would look up, you would just see metal flying everywhere. Because I know even now, NASA and whoever else, I think they already have issues of satellites getting hit by other satellites, or satellites getting hit by big rocks, space rocks, or asteroids or whatever. So there's a lot of shrapnel that is actually orbiting the Earth right now. So I don't know. That concerns me a little bit, but yeah, the technology is so cool.
No, the space junk is definitely a concern. And then, we've all seen the movie WALL-E.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, look, I get it, but I don't understand. There's got to be better ways down the road for sure. And then the planned obsolescence with the satellites is they just burn up in the atmosphere. So that's cool.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, there's a plan to have like 60,000 satellites, I think.
So crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy to think of. And then there's no way. Well, first off, they've made adjustments to change the paint on the satellites too, so they're less reflective.
Oh,
so that's cool. Yeah, because it was a problem, but now that they've addressed it, they are trying. Because the reality is the only problem is, how do you solve the problem, right? Like, how do you give the entire world internet? It's a dope question. How do you give the entire world internet? Because there's so many people in rural areas, especially in other third world countries. Again, going back to the makerspace, if there is internet, you can have a makerspace, dude, because it just allows for you to build a model that you can bring to not just other states, man.
Right.
What if I can bring that to other countries?
Oh,
Did you hear about the story about this dope ass kid who made a radio out of garbage?
No.
Dude, I can't remember this kid's name. It was I think I did. Yeah. 5 to 7 years. Smart ass kid. He created a radio for and could produce a radio. It's like an actual radio station, right?
It was in Africa, wasn't it?
Yep. And he fucking he did that, and I don't know if he also invented this thing that such a sweet kid. He invented this thing that scared lions away.
Really?
Because their livestock was being eaten. So I don't know if it's the same kid, but there's some smart shit coming out of people fucking with garbage.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Kelvin Doe.
Yeah.
Sierra Leone, West Africa.
Yeah. That kid's smart. And he also allowed what's really really beautiful. And I want to do more for kids like that.
Yeah.
He was also able to give small villages a voice. And if somebody needed help, that's another thing where if there was a doctor in one village, it would take too long for somebody to walk over there and tell them and have them come. But if they have radio communication,
right,
you can just say, hey, we need help, and it's less time for that doctor to come over. And so it's just, man, it's just, that, and they get a voice. I think he's also doing a DJ thing with music and whatever. But
wow,
it's really exciting to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, there are so many minds in the world that don't have the resources to use their gifts. Imagine how many entrepreneurs there are out there that just they can't be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that does come from Africa because of how far people actually live.
Right.
And so there's actually people that have. Oh, there's this. You know about the grandfather clock, right?
Mm-mm.
Do you know how it actually gets its electricity? Like, do you know how that actually works? Not electricity, but actually. How the gears work. So it uses gravity. So those two things that you see, they go like this. So when you see them pull it down, it's just turning based on the but the point is it's using gravity is the point. And so there was a company that came out with this light that you could just pull it and it would slowly come down. So it's generating enough electricity to where now you have a light.
That is so cool. That makes me think of something I heard about yesterday too. There's a company in San Francisco called Spin. Not to be confused with Spin, the scooter. There's an electric scooter company called Spin. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but the concept is it's like a metal wheel, and the wheel is housed in something that's almost frictionless. So the wheel, when you start spinning it, it'll almost spin forever. And the wheel generates electricity, so you can start spinning the wheel during the day, and the momentum will keep it spinning all night long, and it'll keep generating electricity basically for free all night long. Which is it's basically infinite electricity without any coal, without even solar or anything. It's just free energy. I want to find what it was called.
This is when we get to the good part of the conversation.
Flywheel. Yeah, it's called a flywheel, and I don't think it's a new energy concept specifically for this company. I think it's kind of a thing that's been talked about before, but this company is actually making it reality. Rotational kinetic energy creates electricity.
That's awesome, man.
So crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing that excites me about engineering too, is like that kind of stuff. Like, man, but to talk about the biggest thing that holds people back from that, and I think it has a lot to do with like, the reality that we live in requires a 9 to 5, requires all these different things. And so I found myself to agree with Andrew Yang with the
universal
base, UBI, universal basic income. And I don't identify as a Democrat, but the reason why I think that's important and where he gets the money from, let's talk about that, because that's super important, because people think, oh, it's just communism. I'm like, no. No. I'm selling my data for free. I should get something back from it. And so the point he brought up was these social media platforms, Google searches, all these ads. Mm-hmm. If they're making money off of our data, there should be a tax. And that people are like, oh, but it would cost like $3.5 trillion or whatever to do that, to make that happen. But like there's examples of where that works already in Alaska. Like Alaska, you get $1,000. I think I don't know if it's every year, but basically there is a residual income that people get. It's basically an oil tax, I think, because of the oil industry out there. Yeah. And so people in the environment, they get $1,000 just for being a resident.
That sounds like Norway too. Actually, Norway obviously is a pretty socialist country, but they have a lot of capitalism as well. And the country's like, I think one of the wealthiest countries in the world, just because they have such a big foundation of oil. And it's ironic because most of the people there drive electric cars and ride bicycles or whatever. Yet they have one of the biggest wealths of oil in the world, and they're just drowning in money from it. But yeah, I think they have something similar with the income. I think all the people there, they actually do get money from the oil, especially obviously if you live on oil. But I keep trying to think of these terms.
It's doing a podcast, man. It definitely makes your brain not think right sometimes.
It really does.
You get this great idea, and any other time you'd probably think of the right things to say, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm on a podcast, so the answer is going to be no.
Yeah, there's a citizen dividends and oil resource.
But yeah, I mean, with UBI, I think, like I was saying, the reason why I think it's a good idea is because think about it. It would make people less afraid. I'm not saying it pays all your bills, and I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is, like, for my wife and I, it would allow us just like no strings attached, right? We would get it. What that would allow for a family to do is now one person can be at home studying.
Right.
Because I was unemployed for a while trying to figure things out, but I was so stressed because of money that eventually I wasn't able to like continue that. Right. So like I was trying to figure out like entrepreneurship. Like I do still believe that's a course that we have to take. It's just because I learned in such a certain way, and because I have, you know, mental barriers, emotional barriers that I was working through. And this kind of comes like, and I don't know, I haven't talked to a lot of people about this, but like, I tell my wife sometimes, I'm like, sometimes you just got to yell at me. Cause I grew up, with my mom, bless her heart. She worked 3 jobs. You know, she did a lot to take care of us. And sometimes she was a mom and dad, but you know, I did have abusive stepfathers. I did have, you know, my father who struggled with drugs and alcohol. And so, and when all you're around is people yelling at you, it's really hard to, when you get older, to be able to receive anything unless somebody's like in a confrontation with you or a conflict or a verbal, high volume altercation. And so that's where I find myself getting stuck, because I'm like, I just need somebody to kind of just fucking bitch at me. Right. I had a friend, love him to death. I'm not going to say who it is, but cause he would he wouldn't like that. But basically he just reached out and he was like, man, you are old. You look like you're 40. And but no, he started off with saying, I need you here. Like, I'm like, you need me? Wait, what? He's like, I need you here for a long time, man. You need to be around for a long time. And I was like, kind of like, oh, that's sweet. He was like, but you look old. You need to like, you know, kind of just not eat as much. I'm like, wow, is this a nice way for you to call me old and fat? All right. But I kind of took that to heart, but in a good way, because I receive things in a way that sometimes I just need somebody to stop being nice. There's a negative part of what I grew up with, but then there's a positive part. And the positive part is I can take you talking shit. That's fine. I would actually prefer you talk shit, because that's what my brother and I talk shit. Like, I come to visit. That's what we're doing. We're talking shit. Right. My sister, like, that's what we're doing. We're talking shit. When my wife met my family for the first time, she didn't know what the fuck to do. She was like, what is going on? Y'all are so mean. Her and her family, they're all like, you know, gummy bears and Twizzlers. And we're all going to, you know, be super nice to each other. And you say something mean and yeah. So my family, and she was like, what the hell? She didn't know what to do. So yeah, I mean, she's gotten used to it now, but I mean, that's what I grew up with. So like when I'm trying to learn and understand things, like I've told Liam, I put Liam aside and I was like, hey man, I don't think we've had this heart to heart, but we're about to have one. Just so you know, I need you. Cause cause sometimes I get too egotistical, or not that, but like I try to be in control of something that is not necessary. So I just told him the whole shebang. I was like, listen, just tell me straight up, like, hey, Wesley, you might want to chill out on that. Or, you know, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And it just keeps me, because I mean, you know, people want to be nice, but the reality is you're a product of your environment, and you're also a product of your own choices and bubble that you put yourself in. You know, and so it becomes difficult for you to, unless other people help you out. You know, that's what I found. So yeah, I tell people, I'm like, yeah, just talk all the shit you want. That's how I receive information.
I love how in tune you seem to be with yourself. It seems like you're very self-aware of like your preferences and how you think and everything. It's pretty cool.
I appreciate that, because I didn't realize that was a thing until my wife would mention that, and I think the thing that's made that a lot easier for me is I grew up with so many people who were stuck in the choices that they made, and the biggest thing that kind of changed my life, and hopefully this makes sense to people listening, and hopefully you too, is my family, my dad's side, when I was living there, like, we would all fist fight because my dad was struggling with drugs and alcohol at the time, and there was, like, we haven't done obviously none of us do it anymore at all. Anyways, we're grown adults, but it could have still continued though. That's the thing. People still do it and they're grown adults. But I realized that I would allow things to get to a point where I was so angry, because I had anger issues, that I would allow things to get to a point to where they became physical. Now, some people don't realize that you have a choice. So it doesn't matter what your family situation is. My whole family, for the most part, smoked cigarettes. I never chose to smoke cigarettes. I smoked an entire cigarette once, and that was only because I was super stressed out and I thought I needed it, because it was one of those jobs where you're in this class of people, and you're being taught the job, and then you have to take a test. That test determines whether you're going to get the job or not.
Right.
So I was super stressed because I was on my own, had my own bills, that kind of thing. So it was the only time I smoked a cigarette once. But outside of that, like, I've never been an alcoholic, because I learned my limits, and I was like, I'm cool. Like, with alcohol, I'm like, I got shit faced plenty of times. Like, I don't mind getting shit faced, but like, the wife and I were very, we drink pretty responsibly. It's either she gets shit faced and I don't, and then I drive, or I get shit faced and then she drives.
Right.
But and then with drugs, like, I smoked pot a little bit when I was a kid, and I think everybody's partook in something every once in a while, or at one point or other in their childhood or young, adulthood, stuff like that. But I still think, cannabis is something, because I'm getting into CBD, and I'm realizing, oh, this is chilling me out. So yeah. I'm kind of starting to want to revisit that, and maybe THC, down the road when I'm able to, if it's legal in Texas or wherever we're at. But yeah, I mean, I feel like when I made the choice to stop physically fighting, to get back to that, like, that choice, I was like, oh wait, so I have power to change the outcome of what's going on in my family. When I made that choice, it literally stopped. No joke. It's weird how, like, I was the contributor to that, but yeah, it was pretty much that way. Or I would step into family members and try to stop things before it got to that point as well. I just didn't allow it. I was like, this is dumb. That's it. We're done. I would pull my dad away when he's fighting with my uncle or my cousins or whatever. And I just, anytime I could intervene, like, I love my dad to death, but I loved at the point that I got old enough and strong enough, because my dad's shorter than me. So I just got to the point where I was strong enough where I just pick him up. I'm like, all right, Dad.
Wow.
Let's go. It was so funny. One time he got so mad at me, he started yelling at me or whatever. And it was starting to get to a place where I didn't want it to go. My brother and I were living in Phoenix at the time with my grandma and my dad. And I can't remember what caused it, but he started getting really mad and angry or whatever. So I just picked him up. I was like, all right, Dad. And then he just started yelling for my brother, like he was going to come save him. I was like, well, we're not fighting. It's not going to happen. But yeah. And so I started learning, cause I was talking with Mitch, man, we had a great conversation. That guy.
He's a very cool guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I posted the episode if you want to check it out. It's only about like an hour. So it's an easy listen. But yeah, I want to talk to him more. So I'd love to have him on again. Well, because he's married too. So we started getting on that topic, and man, dude, like, so the choice, right? So being introspective and understanding who you are as a person and being aware. I've had to be, because I was born with a blood clot that bursted my left ventricle. So I've had heart surgery and brain surgery and shit like that. So, but what it did was it created brain damage. And so I think differently than other people, but I've had to mold myself in a way where, like I talked about with the supposed anxiety, I don't know, I'm not a doctor for myself, but like all those things I've had to mask. I've had to do a lot of things that make me appear like I'm a normal person, but in reality, like I got a lot of shit going on in my head, like a lot of people do, I'm sure, but as I just realized that I had more power, more choice, I had the ability to change. Like I had the power to change. Right. When I saw that, that's why I'm so quick to like try to find solutions, because I'm like, okay, this is possible. I can do this. With entrepreneurship, that wasn't so much. But when it comes to like relationships and communication, like there's, so with the topic of like marriage, like I had problems because of my upbringing. I would raise my voice. I would get mad, and like with the dog, I'd smack the dog more than you should. Those kind of things that people like. I told Mitch, I was like, yeah, you probably call me an asshole, but I've grown from that person with the help of my wife, and we work together. And eventually we want to write a book, because this is like super powerful stuff. And the more I talk to more people about it, I'm like, this is amazing, because more people need this. For sure. She and I would communicate. She started off with not having a voice, and I would push her to communicate with me. Like, tell me what's on your mind. Like, your voice matters. And but sometimes she's like, oh, but if I say what I feel, you get me mad about it. I'm human. I'm human. I'm still going to respond. If I'm angry or, upset or whatever, I'm still going to respond, because I'm human. You can't expect me to be super, super nice every single time. But as we continued the communication and continued, like we got counseling, but not because there was something wrong. It was mainly because I noticed that, like, okay, I want us to get counseling as early as possible, so that we can sit down with somebody. Because mainly, dude, a lot of times people have issues in relationships, and a lot of times it's just that they're not seeing eye to eye, and they're not willing to sit down with someone else to admit they're wrong. Right. And to say, this is what I think I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, and then this is what I don't like that she does, but I think I understand that I struggle with this too. And when you acknowledge that you're wrong, it helps you to identify the problem that you need to solve over time. And it's about repetition. So I would raise my voice in the car. And so I told my wife, Teresa, I was like, look, I need you to do me a favor. Every time I start raising my voice, I need you to tap my leg. Okay. So then I started to try to create a trigger. So every time I would start to raise my voice, she would tap my leg. And I said, it doesn't matter how many times I don't listen to you, just keep doing it. And so it got to a point to where I don't raise my voice anymore. So I changed a habit that was supposedly something that was ingrained, or I identified with that habit. Right. And that's the problem. People identify with these things that are not real. They've created of their own, there's a word I was thinking about using, but I can't remember what it was. Volition, their own volition is what I'm thinking. Like, they created it themselves, but they don't realize it because they identify with it. And so with the yelling, and that moved from that to like the way I would communicate with her, in addition to her needs. When you're married, you're with that person for life. So you got to learn how to love that person. You got to learn how to communicate with that person. You got to learn how to adjust yourself. It's not so much that's another thing I think people have problems with, is they don't understand that when you get married, it's not a girlfriend and boyfriend relationship. It's something where you have to adjust yourself also. And I think that a lot of people make that mistake as well. But yeah, that was a huge tangent. But I think it's important for people to understand, like, that self inward ability to see that it's important for me, because otherwise, I would be a different person that I don't think would be able to do what I'm doing now.
You really should write a book. That's pretty inspiring. That's almost like philosophical at a certain level. But yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I actually have like a couple book ideas on my my thing. But again, that goes back to the whole me needing to be in a position where I can think that way. So if the UBI was a thing, I would there would be $2 extra $1,000 coming in the house, which would just allow us to explore. Right. Like, is this job the best for me? No. Cool. I'm just going to go. And like, even though turnover for companies would probably be more of a thing, I think the onboarding, they would learn how to find a way to make it less expensive.
Right.
Like, how do you make it less expensive? Because we know we're going to have high turnover.
And they would find better ways to maintain talent as a result of that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but yeah, I mean, I would love to get to a point where I can work on projects, whether that be a book, whether that be a membership course, or whether that be a YouTube channel or podcast. But yeah, so
yeah, that's really that's been an issue with myself too, with open source projects. Like I've kind of dropped the ball on most of my projects at this point because I just don't have time, aside from my primary job for open source. Obviously, of course, Project Guardian is an exception to that, but I've just found myself not having enough motivation or enough time to really work on my former open source Android projects, it's kind of sad, but it's a similar reality to what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've noticed this too, where with Keep, I'm worried I might be falling into that, where it's like there's a bunch of energy surrounding it, working with Liam's dad.
Yeah.
But once I get it to the point to where I can search and you can like actually interact with other people's recipes the way I want to, I think that's going to be a good project completion. Because I mean, Mitch asked this question in one of his videos, and I don't know how you feel about this too, but sometimes projects, it's like, when are projects done?
Right. And especially with mobile apps, there's always going to be more bugs that show up too. So it's almost impossible to really ever actually finish a mobile app, especially as new platform versions come out, like Android or iOS gets an update and there's privacy changes or permission changes or whatever. There's always stuff that you have to maintain basically forever until the app is no longer maintainable. Maybe like you don't have enough time to maintain it, or maybe you're not getting enough revenue to keep up the server or whatever. So yeah, it's hard.
That's why I think Project Guardian is definitely something different, because it's an idea that would grow beyond us. I think,
especially being open source.
Yeah, I think once we get to the point to where we're able to communicate what we're trying to do and onboard people in a way that vets people of ill intent.
Right.
I think it's going to be in a place where we can bring on people who truly want to just, continue to build it. And that's what's cool about it, is like, once you build an idea, it's like Linux, for example. That's a perfect example. That thing's never going to die.
Right.
Like, the guy can die, but Linux will never die.
Yeah.
And may he rest the hell in peace, man.
Yeah.
Because that dude created one of the best things ever.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited though. Like, what excites me about coding is the reality of how you can solve problems. That's why I got into it. And that's actually a good question. Aside from video games, why did you want to get into becoming a software developer, but now you're an Android developer? Now you have iOS devices. So like, what really excites you about kind of being a developer?
No, I feel like it's part of just how my brain works. So I took Mandarin Chinese for 5 years in between high school and middle school. So I'm a big fan of, languages, linguistics. When I was little, I used to write codes that only I could understand. So I would come up with alphabets or symbol-based languages.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So my brain has always just had an interest in, like, I don't really know even like what to categorize it as, because it's really codes. But I also did like animation, and I liked art and that kind of stuff. Superheroes, still like superheroes now, Avengers, all that, Marvel, DC. But yeah, there's just something mathematic about how my brain works that I just really enjoy writing code, like the process behind logic and expressions and all that. It's really its own art form. It's like making an app is like drawing on a canvas. I think it's just its own art form. So that's the way I kind of think about it, I guess. My brain just loves it.
That's a really cool way to look at it, because I think code's the same way in regard to, at least I artistically look at the way I want to position the user experience, which is why sometimes I can be a stickler for how, because I mean, you'll notice as we continue to have meetings, like I push back on things that I feel like, even though I don't have experience, one thing I do know is just through my experience with building the Keep app and my own experience with working with apps, and I know it works and what feels better. Obviously, you don't know everything, but I still really feel like with Keep, or sorry, with Project Guardian, like I really want to focus on making sure that we're appealing to as many people as we can by gamifying it, by making it look very attractive, but not for one side or the other, but mainly so that it's fun and sort of just mainly, not necessarily just fun, but like just engaging. Like it's pleasing to get into. Yeah. Not just that it's a great idea, because I think that's going to be also a barrier, is that people would dismiss it because it looks like trash too.
Yeah, for sure. That people definitely notice, even if you're not a designer or engineer. Yeah, people definitely notice when when an app looks bad, like all the banking apps on all platforms. It's always noticeable.
I don't know if I've actually shown to see if, here we go. Let me see if I can bring this up here. So I believe if I can do this, I'm going to just play and run it. I'm going to share my screen and show you what I was talking about, because I actually was able to make the example of what I was talking about, the drawings.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably going to break on screen, which is going to be great, which happens always, right? That would happen to David and I, Liam's dad, when we were working on the Keep app. We would try to, it was like, come on, demo gods, let us have today. Let us demo this app that we have adjusted. So share a screen. Here we go. I'm doing this for the first time on this thing. Oh, cool. I can do an application window. Nice. All righty. So can you see it?
I can.
Nice. So let me get it over here. There we go. It probably, did it crash? No, it didn't. Awesome. So this is sort of the idea, where like you would have components like this, but like if there were more than two, like they would just get smaller. And then obviously you would either have the name or not, depending on the space available. And then you could click into them, and then they would load their photo and then all their information. I mean, it's basic profile stuff, but this was my goal for the MVP, at least, is to have, more information about the District 33, House of Representatives kind of stuff down here.
Right.
And then you click in here, and then this is their campaign, that kind of stuff. So super basic, but
there'll be some cool animations to add to that too. That'll be fun.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I haven't gotten into, aside from like animating the transitions between one screen to another. That's all I've done.
Shared on transitions.
Yeah. But I would love to learn from you, man. I'm super excited.
For sure. Yeah.
Like,
me too.
It was kind of cool, and you're like, "Oh, I'd love to help you learn more." And I was like, "Okay, I'm excited." But no, I'm super stoked, because I get psyched when I'm able to like work with somebody on a project and learn. But what I'm stoked for is the minute I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know this," and you're like, "Oh really? Oh yeah, I didn't know that." I'm like, "Yeah, Aidan, yeah." So that'd be pretty cool.
I'm sure that'll happen for sure. Yeah.
Probably not, but I will never let you down about it. That's for sure. But anyways, so we're getting to close to wrapping up here. But what I wanted to do is ask you about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Tell me all about it, man.
Yeah.
How is it playing on that crisp screen, man?
Oh, it's amazing that 4K 120 frames per second TV with my PlayStation 5. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Especially like you're walking through the mountains in the snow and you look up and you see the northern lights just like glimmering above you. It's so beautiful. But yeah, I haven't gotten super far into it yet, but from what everyone is saying, it's like the best game in the series so far. That you mentioned that you hadn't really played many of the others in the series, right?
I've played one so far.
Was it
probably
one of
the
ones
first or second ones? Yeah, probably one of the.
Oh yeah, those were the best in my opinion. But yeah, the scale of the worlds is just so massive, and you get to drive or sail the longboats, and you have a crew, and you get to raid islands and do all the stuff a Viking would do. It's awesome. It's like going back to my ancestry.
Right. Yeah, I got to figure out what the heck I am. I just know I'm a German and Norwegian, but I don't know directly where that goes.
You should do an Ancestry.com test. They're pretty cool.
I should, but then there's that whole conspiracy where the government is all using that and other sites like 123Me just to get everybody's DNA collected.
Yeah, I actually do believe that for not Ancestry, but for the other one. Was it 123? One of the companies.
Yeah, 123Me or something like that, or.
Yeah, so that was founded by Sergey Brin from Google. He made Google Earth and stuff. His wife started that company because I think Sergey Brin or someone in their family has some disorders, some like muscular degenerative disorders or something like that. So they actually started the service specifically to discover genetic diseases early. So there's good intention behind it, but yeah, I do remember reading that they were actually a for-profit company and that they are basically selling your genetic data to other corporations. So I don't trust that company at all.
That's crazy. But Ancestry doesn't do that?
Supposedly not. Who knows?
Who knows?
Too late for me now.
I mean, yeah, but like it's like what can you do in the day and age of like they can get your I don't know how many movies you've watched in terms of like tech stuff, but I remember watching a movie where like it was like this, like there's satellites so crazy they can detect, they can understand my buddy who was in the Air Force intelligence, or he argues with me. He's like, that's not possible. I'm like, dude, I don't know how much you've started looking into stuff, but I understand vibrational frequencies in a way that like literally every human body, like your heart has like a certain like magnetic field, if you will. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like a certain energy field. And so everybody vibrates at a certain frequency. And it can be as minute different. Like he's like, how would you tell the difference? I'm like, dude, how are we able to discern the different like SSIDs or like different radio frequencies? Like, you know, I just feel like there is a way, we just may not know. But in this movie, sci-fi, whatever, but like they could detect people by their heartbeat.
Really?
Anywhere in the world.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem that far off, really. Or even like with the satellites, I'm pretty sure they can take pictures of like your face from outer space, and they can actually make out what your face looks like too. Like
there's stuff like that. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. Like just think whatever is in the public eye, times that by like 100. That's what we don't know about.
Yeah, like the Navy had 4G long before the public did. I think like a decade before the public did. So
really,
they always have the technology early. Yeah. All these cellular services, even the internet was invented specifically for the military.
Yeah,
and it later became for public use. Yeah.
Yeah, super crazy with these kind of things, man. But dude, this has been super fun, and the wife is gonna kick my butt if I don't get on out of here. But
yeah, my girlfriend is waiting for me too.
But I would love to hear more about her next time we chat. Because I know you guys have been together for a while, right?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, we met each other in high school, and then we weren't dating in high school, but we re-met each other later on. So yeah, that's
awesome, man. Because you got like a lot of hate. That's pretty dope.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. But yeah, next time we get another podcast, I definitely would love to talk more about some other topics. We'll have to come up with some cool stuff. But it was cool to have you, man. Let's go ahead and give everybody a nice grin for that dope screenshot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right, buddy. Well, hey, it was good to have you. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.